Hello everyone, Screenplay Archaeology host KiramidHead here. Before we get into today's episode, I just want to get some intro stuff out of the way. First things first, we are now part of the Fandom Limb Media podcast network, so I'm going to link their site down below. And that's why you would have just heard a promo for another podcast, because they're another one of the shows on the network. And as per usual, if you like the show and you'd like to know more, you can check out our social media pages on Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, and even Instagram now. The show also has a Patreon if you're willing to gift money, but you don't really need to if you don't want to. And we also have a Discord server, which you can join if you want to chat with, the group members there. So that link is going to be down below as well. So yeah, sit back, guys, and enjoy the show. Alright, hello and welcome everyone to a new episode of the Screenplay Archaeology podcast. I'm your host, KiramidHead.
Back after a long time is Ktulujack.
And we are doing the episode we planned even back then. We are doing Journey to the Center of the Earth, a pair of scripts allegedly adapting the Jules Verne novel, but they're not.
We shall see. Spoilers, they don't.
But yeah, this is an interesting one because it's two wildly different scripts. Two very different approaches, and we don't even have to talk background because there's no real connection at all.
Yeah, it's not there isn't any connection to the original story. So these are two brand new, takes on moving down there. So
yeah, it's basically just expedition goes under the earth.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And and this is also when we're on the scripts themselves, I don't have a whole hell of a lot of background because when I searched for them, I only found one article about the announcement of the first script, and I found a tangential article about the fact that the writer of the second script was doing a Star Trek script. There was an offhand mention of, he wrote Journey to the Center of the Earth for Fox.
Huh, okay.
That's it. So yeah, this first one we're going to be talking about, basically what it is it's an earthquake in China.
Well, I got a little bit of background that I think. Do you want me to go into that, or do you just want to go straight into the script?
What background?
The Glenn and Wright, talking about them a little bit.
We can talk about them a little bit. I just don't want to say the one piece of info that's in that one article because it's kind of a spoiler.
What was the one piece of info? Okay.
It explores the origins of beep deleted lore.
Okay. No. So the two guys that wrote this first script, John Glenn and Travis Wright. Hold on, I got their names right over here.
Yes, that's their names.
John Glenn and Travis Wright. So these guys got their start selling a spec script to Bruckheimer called Red World. And I downloaded it hoping to read it, but I didn't get a chance to yet. I did a cursory once over, and it kind of sounds like Total Recall a little bit. It was not Total Recall, but it kind of sounds like Red Faction, sort of where it's a guerrilla sort of rebel uprising on Mars, but not Moon as a Harsh Mistress style. It's a little more like swashbuckling sort of Mars adventure. And I have read one script by them, which is, besides this one, okay,
of course, which is, they were the first writers to work on the Clash of the Titans remake, and theirs is the closest to the original movie in terms of, the characters and the stuff that happens. It's closer than the movie we got in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
But it also was doing a thing that was kind of outre at the time to, do a mythology movie where the gods are kind of downplayed.
Yeah, okay.
Not to the extent of Troy, because there's still supernatural stuff going on, and it's made very apparent that the gods exist. They just don't show up, but they also make Perseus into an atheist.
Okay.
At first.
All right, yeah.
It's a very weird arc, and the Kraken is just a random thing that shows up at the end. There's no real build up to it.
Okay. Oh, that's disappointing. All right.
Yeah, it's we have to get the head of Medusa to destroy this army that's besieging the city.
So it moves at a rapid pace and shows you a monster at the very end.
Yeah. Well, not that rapid of a pace, but it was an okay script.
Okay.
It's weird how that project developed. How it went from that to like a version where like there's gods from multiple mythologies running around, and then eventually I think Leterrier took over and he downplayed that and made it all Greek and also Saint Seiya inspired for some reason.
Huh. Okay. All right. Do you remember what year that would have been?
The script? Yeah. Their script?
Yeah.
2003.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, and Red World was 2000. What year was this Journey script?
It would have been around 2000. That's when the article was dated.
Okay.
It was a Fox 2000 project.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There is definitely a Fox shout out in the script pages, which is kind of fun. But the other thing that I noticed about them, they also did Eagle Eye, which I think is a fun movie. It's fine. It's a very 2000s nostalgic movie if you're into that kind of thing.
I never actually saw it. I heard about it at the time, but I never saw it.
It's fine. It's fun. It's a good Sunday afternoon movie.
It's a Shia LaBeouf movie, isn't it?
Yeah. It's Spielberg produced. It's good. It's slick. But they worked with Fox pitching Blade Runner scripts for a while there.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I remember reading an article where one of them had to speak up and say, "Oh, we're not actually writing the movie. We just pitched it."
Right. I read that article, and it was just they basically just sat there and pitched ideas left and right. And I was kind of hoping that in the article I was reading, they would tell us like what some of the broad strokes stories that they pitched were, but no dice. But it's still kind of cool.
No,
like it's like these guys pitched Blade Runner. All right.
The only unproduced Blade Runner stuff I've actually gotten my hands on is there's a script called Blade Runner Down where I'm unclear on the research I've done if that was official or if it was a spec. And also, apparently Gary Whitta pitched something called Replicant that would have been like a spin-off.
Yes. And there was another version at some point that was going to be called Metropolis. That would have been
confusing.
Yeah, in the early 2000s. Yeah, anyway, Blade Runner is a whole different thing. I just wanted to bring it up because I think it's neat. And it's like, no, these guys, that Jerry Bruckheimer deal with Red World, I keep wanting to say Red Planet. Red World, like, that got them some clout. Yeah.
Fucking Red Planet.
Oh, no, that's why, yeah.
That's probably why it didn't happen.
Yep, that's exactly why.
Red Planet and Mission to Mars, although I like Mission to Mars, but...
Yeah, I think that one's the better of the two. But yeah, so from what I gather, so getting back to Journey, what I gather out of this is that it was something that like this had to have been like a first draft. Like this was like but I think would have been like a pitch draft. So
yeah.
All right. So let's hop in. I don't think there was anything written before this draft.
As far as I know.
Yeah.
As far as I know. Like, there's no information out here about these. These are weird...
Yeah.
Weird artifacts.
Yeah, they are. All right.
It really... But, yeah, so the basic premise is that there's an earthquake in China. It uncovers this pyramid that was heretofore unknown. And there's a cave system that's been opened up underneath this pyramid. And basically, an expedition has gone down there and has disappeared. And so basically, like, a team of, like, cave rescue guys gets put together to go find them. And basically it's basically them going down under the earth to find out what happened to this team, and they do.
Yep. Boy, do they.
Oh boy. And so this one starts at... And so it opens in space. Both these scripts do this.
Yep.
And I've actually heard this opening described as like a potential opening to several movies, including The Hills Have Eyes, where it's in space and it quickly descends down to Earth. Of
course. I've probably read a whole script's worth of first pages to scripts that open with the almost this exact opening. The space to Earth shots. Yeah.
But yeah, that was in that period where like Craven was like he initially wanted to make The Hills Have Eyes set in like the near future. And there was like a despotic police state where you needed ID to go from state to state. It was some weird shit like that.
He was huffing the good paint. I gotcha.
Oh yeah, but it settles in a valley in Shenxi province, China. I'm probably horribly mispronouncing that. 6 months ago!
Yep.
So we have a local boy rolling a wheel around, and steam begins to rise from the ground. Huge earthquake starts, ripping open a yawning chasm in the ground. The soil crumbles off a nearby hill, revealing a pyramid underneath. A smooth-sided pyramid, it says. And the boy soon notices that he is surrounded by mummified bodies that have been disgorged by the quake, and one's eyes flutter as the boy screams. And the scream fades into the whine of a motor pulley mounted above a 300-foot shaft deep inside a cave in Moab National Park, Utah. Oh no, the Mormons are here.
So, right off the bat, like, they really set up the kind of mummy things that coming up to be alive, to the point where I'm like, do you think at this point this is what it was supposed to be? Because from this point on, outside of that opening, they do not imply again that it is like mummy monsters.
Well, they say they're in in a coma of some kind or something.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
Okay,
but yeah, they're not that important.
Yeah, they're not. They're surprisingly they're not.
Let's say yes.
On the other side of the planet.
Yep, an archaeological expedition retrieving hominid bones, which I didn't think about this when I first took these notes 2 years ago, but on my reread, I don't think we had hominids in North America. Are the Mormons planting evidence?
Really? Yeah.
But yeah, they're being assisted by a team of deep cave riggers, and it literally says in the script, the riggers are important, the archaeologists not so much. And they're led by Elliot Jacobs. He's accompanied by mechanic Donnelly and his best friend, the spiritual Seven, who he must be that kid from Seinfeld. Because, Seven, that's the name. It's got cachet out the yin-yang. Also, it's interesting they named a character Donnelly and they don't do the Atlantis thing in this script.
Yeah.
Because the 50s movie, the 50s version of Dread to Center of the Earth, the entire climax is set in the ruins of Atlantis.
Really? Okay, so that's where that movie goes.
Yeah, it's not like any big science fiction Atlantis. It's just a ruined
right. It looks
city.
Like Greece, essentially. Is that?
And it's actually weirdly kind of ahead of its time in setting Atlantis within the Mediterranean, because I think that's before the Theora hypothesis.
Where did they think it was before that?
Well, I mean, Plato says it's in the Atlantic.
Oh, okay.
But no one actually knows where it is because it maybe didn't exist. Controversial statement, but it's interesting that they have a character named Donnelly when Ignatius Donnelly was the guy who popularized Atlantis theory in the modern world.
That is interesting. I doubt it was intentional, though.
Yeah. And so they send the archaeologists back up on lines and prepare to send everything else back up on a platform, with team member Nolan being sent down to join them, and he's about to get in trouble because he insisted on not using CGI.
Of course.
Base camp operator Kali oversees everything from above ground, and I'm like, you do know Kali is the name of a goddess.
We'll get back to that.
Prepare to meet Kali in hell.
Yeah.
One of the archaeologists goes to the edge of the shaft to take pictures, only to drop the camera.
Yeah.
They make the archaeologists out to look really stupid.
Yeah.
Which
Nerds.
Which dislodges stalactites and causes a small avalanche of sharp pieces that sever one of the platform's lines.
That dude dropped a camera and caused an 8-page action sequence. Is what
he did. And I coincidentally have been listening to the audiobooks of the Clive Cussler Dirk Pitt novels.
Okay.
And in the last one I listened to, Night Probe, it ends part of the climax is a nighttime cave diving, and they come up into an air pocket with stalactites, and one of the guys goes face first into the stalactites and blinds himself.
Oh.
Those books are insane, by the way. And so Nolan is slammed into the shaft wall and knocked out while Donnelly slips, only just managing to grab the edge of the platform. Seven gets to Nolan, but his line gets frayed by more debris. Elliot grabs onto them, but his line is fraying as well, so he cuts it, firing off a piton, and he basically Batmans this shit.
He totally does. He Nathan Drakes it. We're going to see a lot of Nathan Drake in it going on over here.
Yeah, a piton and a nylon cord from a TL-8, saving their lives. Back on the surface, they all plan to go their separate ways for 3 months of time off, with Donnelly and Nolan heading for Tijuana, so they're going to run into those guys from Hellraiser Revelation. While Seven goes with Elliot, who plans to take his son Ian on a fishing trip.
Yeah, so he goes home.
Fuck.
That action sequence is insane, by the way. Like, it really does just go on, and it's like, oh my god, right off the bat, guys? All right.
And I covered it in less than a page of notes.
Yeah, you did.
And so they soon arrive at Elliot's family farmhouse, where Ian has been staying with Elliot's sister, Lori. This script introduces a fuckload of characters.
There are so many. It's endless.
Seven drives off, wishing them well on the trip, and I was actually wondering, wait a minute, did Elliot drive them there? Is Seven just going to stay in the house? But no, he leaves, and I guess he's going to go see 1 through 6.
Yeah, really? Nice.
And we get filled in. Lori is Mrs. Exposition. She fills us in on how Elliot's wife Catherine died years ago, and she's like, man, you should really try to move on. And then there was a doctor who stopped by the day before, wanted to contact Elliot about a job. And so Elliot I don't even know. I don't even really feel like I need to take notes on this stuff, because a lot of this stuff doesn't matter. Elliot then gives Ian a piece of gypsum he found in the cave, which Ian puts in a collection of stones his father has given him. Aww.
Yeah, I had a moment where I was like, this script might have some good, solid character development, and then it's like, nope.
It has
cute,
it has a little bit of character development.
Yeah.
And so he suddenly hears a knock at the front door and is met by Dr. Shang Hui?
Shangu. Or Shang. That's Shang.
Shang.
Yeah, Shang.
Shang Hui. John Wayne. Who has come to pitch the job in person, and he drove all the way out to the middle of fucking nowhere. Despite Elliot's reservations, he wants Elliot's team for a rescue mission. 4 days ago, a scientific expedition went missing in a cave in China, 6,000 feet deep. A team inexperienced with that kind of deep cave exploration, and I kept waiting for there to be, a reveal of what they sent them down there for, why they rushed it.
Right.
Never really comes up, because there's all this stuff about how, Shang is, holding back, but he never really he never really reveals much.
Yeah, no, he's clearly hiding something, and when it comes out that, okay, it's his brother. It's his brother's down there. That's how they play it off. And it's that's the secret? I thought you were going to be we have state intel down there or some shit. And it's no. It's oh.
We found an underground society of capitalists. The world cannot know.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. And Elliot's no cave system goes that deep, dude. And I'm I really want to, I probably should have researched this just to see if it's true. I don't know how deep the deepest caves are.
Well, they go for... this script goes for, the more realistic... movie air quotes here, realistic approach, where it's... They don't go... Do you want to go ahead and say, that they don't go to the center of the Earth? Because we're basically there anyway. He asked them... They do the back and forth thing.
Yeah. We can say that much.
Yeah. It's they do the back and forth thing. He's come help us. He's no, I can't. I've got my child. And he's why don't you think about it? Why don't you go upstairs and tell your kid you're going to think about it? So he runs upstairs, tells the kid, they're going to leave him first, right? And then the kid manages to, talk... No,
his dad is just hey, we're just going to change the destination.
That's what it is. Yeah, he brings him along. Yeah.
You know what this is? This is what would be if John Matrix and the Commando, if he accepted the Colonel's order and went, yeah, I'm going to take Jenny with me.
That's exactly what this is.
But okay, so they go yeah, it was uncovered by an earthquake, blah, blah, blah. He wants Elliot's team because they're the best, and even offers to allow Ian to come along when Elliot mentions him. And this is when Shang says his brother is on the team. And so Elliot's okay, because we find out later that Elliot has baggage about people being left in caves.
Right.
Ian walks in just as Shang leaves, is initially upset, but Elliot's shut up, kid, you're coming.
Yeah. Bring your X-Men pajamas. We're out of here.
Please, oh God, the X-Men.
Please buy my script, Fox, please.
There was an X-Men reference?
Yeah, there's a direct shout out to X-Men. It's not the pajamas, it's the bed sheets. But yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
X-Men.
So they
there's I gotta mention, there's a Skip Woods script. Now, you know Skip Woods wrote X-Men Origins, right?
No, who's Skip Woods?
He wrote X-Men Origins.
Okay.
He wrote fucking Die Hard 5. People think he's fake. And people thought he was like a fake name at one point.
Okay, all right. Writers.
But no, he wrote a spec script called In Defense of Sleeping Beauty, and there's a scene where a character has a Wolverine poster on the wall.
Nice.
Well, okay, so Kali's already there. He left early to set things up. So the team, they meet at the airport, and so we get there. It basically cuts to them flying out to the site. Like, it skips over the trip there.
Yeah.
And they see the White Pyramid from the plane for the first time. They meet with Kali on the ground, who is escorted by 2 armed Chinese soldiers. Shang, who refers to the pyramid as an exact duplicate of the Great Pyramid of Giza, refers to the soldiers simply as a safety precaution. There's all this buildup of them like guarding everything, and it's like, why?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's working though, because there's the pyramid, and it's like they're building stuff and setting up over there. I don't know. I'm buying into it right now. It's like, okay.
And so Ian goes off to explore the camp while Elliot and the team meet with Stephen Byrne, who has mapped the cave system.
Yep.
The initial drop is 1,300 feet and just keeps going from there, with the echo fading out around the transition zone in the mantle. So this goes well down into the crust.
Yep.
And he points out where the expedition went missing and says that their comms went dead and backups inexplicably failed. The rig will be for equipment and supplies for 10. The team, Byrne, Shang, a medic, a biologist, a linguist. I didn't even bother writing down their names.
Red shirt, red shirt. They do.
and a soldier named Joe Bo Hai.
Yep, Joe.
Bo Raicho.
Bo Raicho. No, not him.
He
would have made that script fun.
And he has been polishing a shotgun all through this scene, I noted.
Oh, of course. He's tough.
And Elliot isn't happy about taking this many people down there, but Shang has the final word on this. And so Elliot goes outside, talks to Seven and Kali as they watch Shang enter the pyramid through an opening a third of the way up. And Seven points out the obvious question here, with the huge archaeological discovery sitting right there. Why are the hosts so much more interested in sending people down the chasm? Good question.
Yeah.
He proposes that Elliot talk to Shang and try to figure out exactly what he and that original team were after before they commit to going down there. And Elliot agrees, and this is where Script points out that the mummies are gone.
They are? They do?
Yeah. Yeah, it points out that the bodies from the opening aren't on the ground anymore.
Oh, they're not on the ground, just on the ground. Okay, yeah.
And so we go to Donnelly, who's getting a special injection from the Chinese medic Jia Heian.
Yeah.
And it's a way of preventing nitrogen narcosis, a serious issue at the depths they'll be traveling at. So there's some attempt at realism here.
I mean, it's trying. It's very Bruckheimer realism, where it's like it feels really realistic, but it's not.
It's not. That's not actually a problem if you're going down in the cave.
I don't know. Would it be if you go down? Because they go. I mean, can I just go ahead and say how far down they go?
Very far.
They go very far. Yeah. But I mean, it might be, but it's kind of it's like, oh, okay, spot the MacGuffin. All right.
Something to add tension.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And Elliot talks with Ian about how baby gulls memorize why did I write this down? And can navigate anywhere with them before promising that he'll return from the caves. And after Ian falls asleep, Elliot sneaks past the guards and climbs up to the pyramid's entrance, making his way inside. And he comes across the American Dr. Nancy Lindenbrock, which is the only connection this has to the Verne book.
The Verne book. How?
It's her.
Go ahead.
It's that the professor, and that is Leidenbrock.
Okay. All right.
Or depending on the translation you read, his name is changed to Von Hardwig.
Von Hardwig.
And here we get there's a Chinese doctor named Pei Lu. Yeah. And they're discussing the mix of Egyptian, Aztec, and Chinese symbols, which tell the story of a great crossing and thousands of deaths. And this is where I think this is a Fox project. You know what I think ended up killing this?
What's that?
AVP, because this is the exact setup for Paul W.S. Anderson's AVP, except there it was Cambodian instead of Chinese.
Huh.
And so Elliot gets jump scared from behind by Shang, who introduces him to Nancy and Lou, respectively a linguist and a microbiologist. Shang explains they'll need Nancy along on the trip to interpret signposts. Symbols were reported by the previous team before they disappeared, but they couldn't read what may well have been warnings. They did not plan this expedition well, did they?
No, they really are just kind of like jumping down there as fast as they can.
And Shang then drops the bomb. They know from the wall carvings that the Egyptians, Aztecs, and Chinese built this pyramid together. I hate to break it to them, but the Aztecs were not around at the same time as the ancient Egyptians.
Don't say it. Don't.
They have other evidence. This makes more sense than the AVP version, where they all have like distinctive parts of different cultures, and for some reason, and then they broke apart and went from there. Here they came together, so it makes more sense. Sorry, Paul. And they have other evidence, which Shang shows to Elliot, the bodies from the opening. Not dead, but not really alive either, stuck in permanent sleep, and all three cultures are represented by them.
Now, I have questions.
It's never...
Yeah, I have questions.
I do. I have speculations, but we're going to have to get through the whole fucking script before I can get to that.
That's okay. We'll get back to it, because this was kind of one of the bits that, like, there's an awful lot of build-up for these things that go nowhere. So, we'll get back to them.
They know who built the pyramid, but not why. And I don't know why they didn't put, like, a... Considering what they did it for, as we find out, I don't know why they didn't just put a big warning sign saying, yo, don't go fucking down there.
Yeah, really.
But so Nolan and Donnelly are working on welding a descending platform together. You think they would just have one?
I thought there was one down to the first break. Do you want me to go ahead and like describe what the hole looks like? Because
well, what does the hole look like? I don't remember.
Yeah. Okay, so it's like a cone shape going down. So it does have a slight inward angle. It's almost like a splinter is the way it's kind of described. It's not a perfect it's not a perfect straight shot down. And I thought for the first, so the way that this script's going to kind of move forward once they get into this and start going down there is it's instead of like the traditional interior exterior cave day night sort of like bullet slugs, it's going to have the different depths that they're at.
That's possible.
And I think the first I thought in the script that the first jump, like the first 800 feet or so had already been like they had a little elevator built. So they actually had that there, but from that first 800 feet down is when they had to start doing the crazy rock climbing stuff that we're getting ready to get into. So
yeah, that's possible.
It's a little more. There's a little bit more had been done, but I like to imagine, like you, I like to imagine it's all like kind of like half-assed, really quickly thrown up Chinese technology, and it's like this is kind of dangerous. Maybe we should just rappel down on our own.
so leftover Soviet technology.
Yeah, exactly.
And God, where is I going? Yeah, Nolan has a bad feeling about this. Yeah, thank you, George Lucas.
Yeah, really.
But yeah, Elliot explains to Seven all the shit, and it's like, oh yeah, but I care most about the rescue mission. And so the next morning, one last check-in with Kali, where they establish that they'll use relay beacons to keep comms up. And I'd be like, motherfucker, you get a shitload of wire. I would rather lay out wire and cable and shit as I go.
Yeah. But we got the backing of the state. Go get it.
Yeah. And the team gathers on the platform and gets ready to descend. And apparently there's I don't remember what I wrote, but there's apparently a humorous moment with the deadpan Cho.
With the deadpan Cho?
There's apparently a humorous moment with Joe.
Oh, yeah, there is a funny moment with him, but I don't remember what it was. It's between him and Donnelly. They have this whole like back and forth because Joe is
he's bringing guns. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But no, Joe's an okay guy. Joe ends up being all right throughout this thing. Like they play him up as being like a badass, angry Chinese guy, but he's got the heart of gold in the end. And
come to think of it, there is a similar beat in AVP.
Oh no!
Where they go like, why are you bringing a gun into the pyramid? And the woman says, it's like a condom. I'd rather have one and not need it than need it and not have it.
Nice. Anderson over here scribbling notes from his desk furiously.
I'm sounding like I'm like a big Paul W.S. Anderson expert. Like I've watched all his movies 20 times. I've just seen AVP maybe 3 times. But okay, we'll move on from there. Yeah. Elliot explains the locators they'll be using, mounted on wristbands and powered by body heat, which is kind of a cool idea.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And Nolan packs C4 just in case they need to blow up in their own tunnels.
Yep.
That sounds like if you use C4 in a cave, that sounds like it could cause more problems than it solves.
Yeah. Plus, I thought like C4 is like really volatile. Like I thought real life C4 is more volatile than it is in the movies. So it's like I love it. Like it's real, movie real.
Well, I know in the in the Lady Killers remake, J.K. Simmons hits it with a hammer and blows his finger off.
That's right. All right, so they are all geared up and ready to.
Yes, they are all geared up. Elliot briefly bonds with Nancy over her fear of caves, love interest.
Yep.
And promising to look after her, Ian asks his dad to bring back a rock for him. Imagine how fucking funny this would be if he was like, Ian, come with me.
Yeah. Well, when I first was reading this, I was like, they're totally going to get the kid down in there somehow. Like, the mummy monsters are going to grab the kid and take him down there, and he'll be another MacGuffin for the story. And it's like, nope, he says goodbye to Ian, and then he's out of the script for the next 95 pages, so bye.
Yeah, he's not in it at all.
Nope. And the only thing, I'll go ahead and say it because I don't remember where it falls in the script itself, but Elliot only thinks of Ian once, I think, the entire time that he's down there. And it's like, oh my god, dude. All right.
It's a really weird dream sequence.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back. The platform descends, taking the team down the first 1,300 feet, and from there they make use of their rappel equipment.
There you go.
And they keep marking out how many feet, so I kept writing it down.
Yeah, that's what I meant about the slug lines.
Yeah, at 3,600 feet, they find the remains of the first camp. And as the team descends, Joe tries to radio back in Chinese, but only gets static.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, why would that work? I mean, I go into a tunnel and I lose reception.
Yeah, well, they make it sound like it's not a friggin' hole in the ground the size of, like, what quarter the size of the Grand Canyon. Like... No, that's a giant hole. I would imagine the Chinese would be able to like ping some kind of Wi-Fi satellite system down in there, but I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't talk out of turn. But you would think it wouldn't be an issue. But okay, because it's just open hole at this point. Like they can just look. It's not like they're down in cave tunnels. It's like they can just look up and see the circle way up there. You know.
Well, no, they would have to be because they've found where the campsite is. They would have to be in tunnels.
Oh, okay. Did you skip past the base jump that they do?
Yeah, they because it says that they take the platform down for 1,300 feet and then they rappel.
Okay. Yeah. Well. Okay. Well, I guess it's worth mentioning because this is one of the things that the script did really well. Was
bear in mind these notes are 2 years old.
No, it's fine, and that's kind of fun because it's me. It's like I just read the script a couple of days ago, so they.
I just reread it.
But the actual getting down there was great. Like there is a base jump sequence that Seven does, like a base jump parachute sequence that is like that. That was one of the sequences that turned some heads when they were trying to pass this script around, no doubt. Mm-hmm. In fact, I would imagine like that whole and it goes on for a while. Like they are traveling down there. It's like it kind of breaks up into. They have like a group conversation or something, and then they do like a thing to go down further, and then group conversation, and then thing to go down further, and it actually is pretty cool. I was into that part of it, so it would have been neat. It would have been neat to see like on the big screen, and I can see that being turned on for a lot of people. But anyway, so they do eventually make it down to what 3,000 feet? Is that where you said we were?
We were at 3,600, which is where they find the camp.
Yep.
They can't talk. They can't communicate. And then Elliot and Seven start speculating that the inexperienced team was sent down because someone was in a hurry. And at 5,200 feet, the first relay beacon is set up.
Okay.
And so Byrne goes over his maps and points out that the vertical shaft is directly ahead at 5,700 feet.
Oh, okay. There it is.
Yep, and so this is where we get to the shaft.
Nice. Phrasing.
Yeah. Shaft! and Shang points out it's directly beneath the pyramid, And when they get there, they find it's lined with polished, heat-sealed limestone, making it too smooth to climb and impossible to put the pitons in.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right. That was a great scene. That was really cool because like they're kind of like they're looking at the shaft, and I thought it was horizontal because I thought that they were looking like directly at it instead of up or down at it. But I guess
they're looking directly at it because the cave opened up.
It's like a horizontal shoot in.
Yeah, because it was opened up by the earthquake.
Yeah, and the way it's described is like at this point they've been used to just shooting their RI gun and like hitting targets on either side of the wall. So one of them, Seven, shoots his gun over, and it's perfectly described as like ping off the side of the wall, and it's like, but it's like pitch black in there. So it's like this endless kind of black void of a tunnel, and the RI sensor didn't even like grab the wall, so it just kind of bounces off and rolls deeper in.
Yeah, they can't.
It's like,
they can't,
mysterious.
They can't Batman their way.
No,
out.
they can't.
And this is where I think we get a lot of like the conspiracy theory techno babble about how like the pyramids like their stones are stacked so precisely.
Yeah, ancient aliens, of course. We couldn't have done that. We humans could not have figured that out on our own. So, of course.
And so they mentioned that there was the other team, they got down by following the cave because there's another opening further down. And Elliot's like, we don't have the time. So there's a granite ledge on the other side, and Seven just base jumps and parachutes to the bottom.
That's it. That was awesome. Sorry.
And they're like, 50-50, chances he lives.
Yeah, they're taking bets on him on the way down. It's great. Great sequence. Outstanding.
And he sets up the pulley system that allows them to cross the shaft and rappel down. And at the bottom, they find a massive door with a hole blown into it by the previous team. And the door has a sun carved on it, worship of which the cultures had in common, which is true. At least of Aztecs and ancient Egyptians. I'm not that well versed in ancient China.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything about the sun in Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, but I remember Ghidorah was in that movie. But okay. And Shang... Okay, this is where it gets weird. Shang wonders if there are similar shafts underneath the other pyramids around the world, which could have been missed because the focus on what was inside them. Yeah, bullshit.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, I guess it's true because you said it in the movie.
Like, I'm pretty sure they have used, like, satellite technology, or maybe not in 2000.
Right. But, it's fun, though. It's all right.
Yeah. And Nancy examines the writing on and around the door, which Donnelly correctly deduces as a warning about the other side, with Shang saying the builders didn't want people to find something down there. And Donnelly, for his part, just wishes he went to Tijuana.
Yep.
And so at 6,900 feet, the third relay is set up, and Joe notices from his knots that Donnelly used to be military. But yeah, you can tell that from the Nazi ties.
Yeah.
Yeah, Donnelly used to be military. He didn't last long, though. He says he spent 2 years in prison for punching a sergeant.
Yep. More of Donnelly and Joe pushing each other around, being manly men at each other.
Two of the better characters.
Yep. Because they are characters.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, let's check in on Lou. What do you have to say? Oh, he hasn't said anything since he was introduced, and he isn't going to say anything for the rest of the script. Okay, bye.
And Joe's like, oh, that must be why I don't like you, Donnelly.
Yep.
And walks away. And so the cave begins to narrow. Shang notices, and there's this whole conversation about the Om symbol tattooed on Seven's arm, where it's like, Seven isn't really exactly religious, he's more spiritual, and Shang is like, I believe in my work.
Yeah.
Which is trying to be character development.
They're trying to pull in some stuff, but it's not really working out. It's not really going anywhere either. So it's like, all right, want to be character development.
And then, like, the Om is apparently an F-sharp note, which is also the acoustical nature of all the pyramids around the world?
That's right. Yeah.
I have read a lot of crazy bullshit about, like, the pyramids and shit like that. I've never heard that one.
That's a fun one, though. I'd like to think that one is true, because if that's true, then that's that's actually kind of a neat tattoo to have. Like, all right, that's cool. That's decent.
I mean, there's a friggin' writer who wrote a book about how, like, the pyramids were, like, controlling a Death Star. There is some crazy bullshit out there. And so the cave gets even narrower to the point that they have to crawl. And Nolan has to help Nancy work through her claustrophobia, telling her to focus on the wider areas ahead. And so they emerge into an open space atop a waterfall, and Elliot notices a change in barometric pressure, indicating geothermal activity somewhere below them. And their recon locator pings, signaling that they're not far from the first team's location, which is within a few thousand feet. And they'll get there by midday tomorrow with any luck. And I'm like, how do you determine the time when you're in a cave? They then drop flares to check out the larger cave they're in, and Elliot says they'll camp at the bottom of the waterfall. Back at the base camp, Kali and the Chinese techs watch as the second relay begins to malfunction and go offline. Ooh, spooky.
Yep,
I'm going to say this now. You know what this script reminds me of?
What's that?
More so than Journey to the Center of the Earth. All those like mid-2000s horror movies set in caves.
The Cave. I almost sent you a picture of the DVD cover to very specifically the. Oh,
I've seen The Cave.
Name? Who was the guy that was in that? That's
Cole Hauser?
Yeah, Cole Hauser's The Cave. Yeah.
I kind of like that movie.
And also, yeah, The Descent. I think I was seeing a little bit more of The Descent because
I've never actually seen all of The Descent, and I'll tell you why.
Why is that?
I remember back when Netflix was a DVD delivery service.
Oh yeah, competitor to Blockbuster. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I got the DVD of The Descent, and it was scratched.
Oh, all those bastards.
And there's another one called The Cavern, which is one we don't speak of.
Oh no.
It's from worse. the director of The Fourth Kind.
Oof. Yeah. Yeah, it does. It is. This movie does kind of fit in with a lot of those sort of their close atmospheric sort of quasi horror adventure movies. I guess The Descent was like pure horror, but the cave was like more of like an action movie. I thought, like in the same way like Pitch Black was, sort of.
But, yeah, it was. Cole Hauser was in both.
Yeah. Yes, he was.
All right, so in the cave, Donnelly, how we get a scene where he flirts with Gia, blah, 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 not important. And Elliot helps Nancy unearth an artifact as he asks him about Ian, and he avoids mentioning his wife. It turns out to be a breastplate with the Eye of Horus engraved on it, who is identified as the sun god, even though Horus was not the sun god.
Yeah, swing and a miss there, guys.
No, if you go by Scorpion King continuity, he was Ron Perlman. Between this and the Aztec sun symbol on the door, Shang suggests the villagers of the pyramid were afraid and brought their symbols of light with them, blah, blah, blah. That's when Kali's communication comes through, telling Elliot about the relay going offline. And so Elliot initially wants to wait until the repair crew can fix the problem, but Shang doesn't want to delay things any longer, and he basically guilt trips Elliot into continuing on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I remember that.
And so, Elliot has a nightmare where he follows a figure into the cave, finds a cocoon thing that a child's arm bursts out of. That's like the one time he thinks about Ian.
Yeah, that's it. Wakes up, is like, oh yeah, I guess I should grab a rock. There we go.
Completely pointless horror scene.
Yeah.
Just...
You think they might want a boo scare? Wow, throw one in, sure.
Because I've read that in scripts where they feel like it's not scary enough, so they just stick in a dream sequence.
Yeah.
but usually, even those scripts, they will like connect it back around and like try to like say that the dreams were caused by something. No, he just has weird dreams.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the team continues on, passing through a tunnel lined by huge gypsum crystals. And you know what this is reminding me of? The Core.
Oh man. Yeah. Aaron Eckhart at his finest.
Yes. Hilary Swank between
man.
Oscars. I was about to say pre-Oscar, but she already had one. And an aftershock rocks the tunnel. Elliot pushes Nancy away from some falling crystals. Blah, blah, blah. Love interest stuff. At 12,900 feet, the team enters a huge chamber, the other end of which branches off into two separate tunnels. It's here that they find the previous team's camp completely abandoned, leaving behind samples, weapons, and even a camera case that belonged to Shang's brother. Not a camera case.
Yeah.
So whatever happened to them, they jacked their cameras.
Yeah.
And Byrne tries mapping the two branching tunnels, but iron deposits throw off his instruments. These instruments are delicate, as James Mason says in the 50s movie. You've ruined my instruments, I'll horse with you. There are no obvious tracks showing which way to go. You know what this script needs? It needs the duck.
It needs the duck? Or the dock?
The duck. There's a duck in that movie.
Is it just a pet that somebody has?
Yes, the guide brings his duck with them. And it actually helps out a couple times.
Yeah.
Then the bad guy kills and eats the duck.
Really?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, the duck named Gertrude. But okay, and so there are no obvious tracks showing which way to go. Later, Gia gives them their injections, pointing out they're an hour late and can't let that happen again. And I'm like, if they take them an hour late and they're fine, doesn't that mean that it's an extra hour that they can go again?
Yeah. Maybe you're not doing your math that well? All right. Also, like, it doesn't work like that. Like, as a diver, it's like, I don't know. I mean, maybe there are for, like, deep sea salvage guys, there are, like, kind of, like, pressurized shots you can take. But I'm like, but why? Like, the more I think about it, I'm like, why? all right. Okay,
I have learned way too much technical diving info from listening to those Dirk Pitt books, because Cussler was a goddamn
Cussler loves it.
Yes, he does.
All right.
And so Seven notices a fissure in the wall and has them move their camp in case of another aftershock. And Elliot strikes up a conversation with Joe, asking him what he thinks happened to the other team, and he doesn't know, but it must have happened quickly.
Have you got monsters yet? Not yet. Nope. Gotta keep holding on. All right.
No, don't spoil it. Elliot says he thinks the geological survey story is bullshit and asks Joe why they really came down there, but he doesn't know, saying he just follows his orders.
Mm-hmm.
And during the night, Nolan is kept awake by Donnelly snoring and moves outside the camp, going too far. I mean, Nolan should like a lot of like noise that makes it hard to hear, but he goes too far despite Seven's warnings. He starts to get the feeling that something is there with him and bolts towards camp, slamming into something and falling to the ground. And he looks up and sees something that makes him scream in terror. And I'm just picturing that scene in The Two Towers where Merry and Pippin get brought to the White Wizard and they think it's Saruman.
Oh, yeah. Okay, all right.
Weird pull, I know.
It's a deep one, yeah.
It also reminds me of the scene in Conan the Destroyer where Conan's drunk and he runs face first into Wilt Chamberlain. Weirder pull.
Yeah.
But Nancy is woken by the faint echoes of the scream, but Elliot thinks she was just dreaming. And the next morning, blood drips onto Seven while he meditates, and he tells the camp that Nolan has disappeared, showing them the blood. And they try to ping his locator, but get nothing, and when Elliot tries to contact Kali at the base camp, he gets only static, so nothing has changed.
Yeah.
He then grabs 2 pairs of heat imaging goggles, or HIGs as they call them, and hands one to Seven as they search the cave chamber. And they find some blood, and eventually his locator, the band, ripped in half. The trail leads to the 2 tunnels, and they split into 2 groups to search, led by Elliot and Seven with their HIGs. However, it gets weird when the HIGs pick up a fresh set of footprints, in each tunnel with no sign of having doubled back. This is a weird point they don't really elaborate on.
Yeah, that's right. I'm following along with you, and I'm like, yeah, that's right, that was a thing. Okay. Yeah, they don't elaborate. It's just a thing that happens.
And so Byrne, in Seven's group, picks up a large heat signature up ahead. Seven has them kill the light so we can follow the tracks better, but they move into a narrow fissure before going up a wall and disappearing.
Yeah.
The tunnel dead ends there, and Seven comes face to face with a large group of bats on the ceiling. And it's like, oh, they're like a new species, blah, blah, blah. This is one of Lou's lines.
Oh, Lou's got a line! All right, Lou! Yay!
Lou, he snags one of them, saying they must be a new species. He puts it in a plastic specimen box.
Which, it's a bat, so is it, like, just tearing at him while he's, like, putting it into one of these boxes? You know? Like, all right.
Well, I mean, bats are, like, relatively, like...
Not these bats. These are supposed to be, vicious. I mean, they're not giant monsters. I guess they're kind of monsters, but they're not, like, giant monsters or anything. But they're, like, supposed to be, like, big. They're biggins. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But oh no, and so Elliot's group continues down their tunnel until Nancy trips over Nolan's unconscious body and they take him back to camp.
Mm-hmm.
And so Gia examines him, saying his vitals are low, points out a wound at the base of his neck, which appears already cauterized and healed enough to have been there for a week. I don't think cauterized is the word they were looking for.
Yeah.
Maybe, no, I know, there's a word for it.
Yeah.
Not scabbed. What's the word? What does it mean that the bleeding has stopped?
Yeah.
Why is my vocabulary failing me? But whatever. You
Yep,
do
I know
listen
exactly
to this,
what
you know
you're
what I
talking
mean.
about. Coagulate.
Coagulate, yeah.
Thank you, Google. Clutch the Google. All right.
And it's healed enough to have been there for a week.
Yeah.
And she speculates it could have been a spider or scorpion, and Donnelly is like, oh, fuck. And he forces Elliot to lead him and Seven away from Nolan for a moment. And meanwhile, Joe has been examining the area around the tunnels, finding fresh gouge marks in the limestone. Okay, I think I know what the 2 footprints thing was about, but we'll get there.
Okay.
He feels something lurking nearby and quickly heads back towards camp. And so Elliot, sitting with his men around a campfire with Donnelly angry at him for breaking the rules and continuing on. Nancy approaches, bringing up the faint screaming she heard the night before. You know, for a linguist, she hasn't done a hell of a lot.
Nope.
And both Seven and Donnelly think that something else is down there with him, but Elliot doesn't agree, thinking that the thin oxygen and stressful circumstances have muddied their perceptions. He goes to check on Nolan, whose skin has become translucent, and speaks briefly of the walls moving before passing out again. Shang appears soon, saying that Nolan must have been hallucinating, and so yeah, he's following the party line again. Elliot decides they're going to turn back, and even Shang, bringing up his father dying while trapped in Mammoth Cave, can sway him.
Yeah.
So yeah, he had a daddy who was left behind in the cave.
Yeah.
Nancy wakes up in the night hearing a noise. Joe is standing nearby. He heard it himself. The bat starts to freak out in its cage, so the bat's just there for atmosphere building. Setting off the sensor light and lighting up a 20-foot radius. Everyone is soon woken up with Joe saying that it hears something coming, and Nolan says it's coming.
Yep.
All over the room.
No.
It was a spooky ghost.
Yeah, oh God.
They soon hear what sounds like knives scraping on rock. Then something smashes the light, plunging the camp into darkness. And whatever it is that attacks the camp, killing Lou.
Yeah, bye Lou.
Swatting Shang aside and picking up and squeezing Seven tightly before Elliot starts to drive it off with a flare.
Yep.
The thing, only seen in silhouette, is driven off, and Nolan is heard screaming as well.
I don't think the screenwriters knew what it was yet, because it's like it is described as like because this is the first time that we've seen anything resembling Contact outside of what I thought the mummies were going to be at the beginning, and my initial impression of this attack sequence was that it's like black shadowy people figures. Like they look like people, they're people sized, they're black, they're hazy. They're kind of smoggy sort of stuff. Maybe like something you would fight in an Uncharted game.
Oh, yeah.
But then like on second, and it's not, there's something else going on here, but we're not going to spoil it yet. But like upon rereading the sequence, it's like, don't you love it when screenwriters are like, it's too fast, it moves so fast you can't see it. And it's like, well, I'm watching a movie though, like, so I have to see something, right? Like that's where I'm like, I don't think they knew what it was yet, to be honest with you.
It moves as fast as the Flash in this scene only.
Yep.
But yeah, this sequence is like, when I first read this, I did not know this was going to be a monster movie.
Okay. Well, I figured Journey to the Center of the Earth has enough clout that it would be something. And you told me it wasn't going to be dinosaurs, so I knew that.
Well, I knew it was going to be something just from reading it, but I was not expecting like a horror movie.
Okay.
Like I was going to say, oh, they're going to go find the team, and maybe they're going to find like the ocean down there or something. No, honestly, there's some things happening in this are less realistic than the book.
Yeah. Oh, big time. But okay, so we got our big first action monster sequence with a monster we haven't seen yet.
And so Donnelly, who borrows Joe's 9mm. Between your guard and my Glock 9mm, I'll pick my Glock. I've been watching random Arnold clips, specifically the 6 day line.
Oh my god, you could never go wrong doing that.
Yeah, but he goes after Gia, who blindly ran off into a 4-foot gap beneath the fissure. And so he finds her, but another aftershock occurs, trapping them in a side passage and closing off the way the team entered the larger cavern. Wah, wah, wah. Mm-hmm. I'd use a Discord soundboard, but
it'll break everything.
Yeah. It traps them in a side passage and closes off the way the team entered. 1 hour passes, during which the main group buries Lou by.
Yeah.
I'm like, how are they burying him in a cave?
But we've only lost one so far of our like dozen people, which is Lou.
Yeah.
But Nolan's down, I think. So they're still dragging him along.
Yeah.
But, all right.
They gather what little resources they have left. They all agree whatever attacked them wasn't human, with Joe noting that his large gauge shotgun ammo didn't even wound it.
Yep.
And Nancy examines Seven's wounds, finding that he has an identical bite mark at the base of his neck. Ooh. It turns out that they barely have any supplies left, but Byrne has seemingly mapped a possible way out. The tunnel they found Nolan in eventually crosses a large chamber, which maybe has liquid hot magma in it. But they hope it doesn't, and crosses with a fissure that leads to the surface. The only problem is Gia still has the necessary injections, and they can't make it that far without them. Spoilers, they actually very much can. Donnelly manages to get through to them by tapping the talk button in Morse code, which is cool. I like that.
Yeah, it was cool. It was kind of drawn out, though. I remember that happening. So, but yeah.
And they send the coordinates for the meetup point back to him. And another problem arises. They don't have enough rope.
Yeah.
To ascend the shaft. However, Elliot says that Donnelly can fix the radio, and they can contact Kali to rig the fissure for them. And so Joe opens up the Halliburton case he brought with him, producing 2 A5 rifles, his backup guns, giving one to Elliot and suggesting they move in a specific formation. I love this that he has backup guns.
Yeah, just in case.
He's like the Chinese version of Rick O'Connell. He just always has guns.
Yep.
And so Elliot and Nancy in front, Shang and Byrne in the middle, then Seven, then Joe in the rear. They're not talking about Nolan. Elliot's group continues on down the tunnel with Elliot and Nancy discussing his dead wife and what happened to his father, left for dead in the cave because he considered too deep to rescue, so blah, blah, blah. Deep psychological reasoning for this guy to have this job.
My character development needs to come to an end because we're coming to the end of the script.
Yeah, like, we are blowing through this thing, and this is a flat 2-hour script.
Yeah, but it's fine. We'll get to that in a little bit, but keep going.
Yeah, they then hear movement in the dark heading right for them. And so Donnelly and Gia, they continue down their tunnels. He's like, I should have taken that ski team job. And Donnelly, he refers to skiers as pussies and gives her a pep talk that helps with her pessimism, and they continue on.
Yeah, thanks, Donnelly. Jackass.
Elliot sparks up a flare in response to the movement they hear, and Seven speaks, saying he thinks it's coming for him, and that something changed when they must have dragged Nolan off, so Nolan's gone.
Yeah.
That's right, they did.
Well, I don't think they actually said that they did. It's just, he's just not with the group anymore. So I assume they forgot. Anyway.
And so he also feels something inside him changed when he was bitten.
Yep.
Ooh. The movement turns out to be a huge group of crickets that rushes right past them down the tunnel. That's creepier than anything else.
That's right, because there was a hot second there where I thought we were going to get plagues. I thought that might be where this is going. Because it's like, crickets, locusts, okay, and then like bats, and I'm like, I don't know about that one. And I'm like, but, you know, like there was a second there, because I still wasn't sure exactly what it was they were selling. So...
Yeah, okay, bats are only one of the 10 plagues in the Dr. Phibes continuity. But Donnelly and Gia take their shots while Elliot's group starts to feel the effects of narcosis. Elliot has a dream hallucination where the pyramid is turned blood red and he finds Ian's pale, translucent corpse under a tarp in the medical tent. So 2 times he thinks about his son.
There we go. Loving father.
He suddenly wakes up and Nancy helps him calm down. Donnelly and Gia discover that their tunnel runs into an aquafill when Donnelly accidentally steps off into deep water. And he communicates via Morse code again, and Byrne locates their way out, 80 feet under the water. There's a ledge they have to swim under, and then back up to get out. They have to do it without tanks, and Donnelly figures it out based on when he saw Native Hawaiians die for conch shells.
Yep.
And so they strip down as much as possible, and Donnelly's like, your shirt's going to cause drag, you have to take it off. He was like, oh. She's like, I'm not doing it naked, because we need to get a PG-13 rating.
Yep, because this is Fox. We want family entertainment.
And so he's like, fine, take my muscle shirt. I'll turn around, I won't look.
I think they end up tying a rock to a rope and trucking it down there, and that's how they're able to get down there as fast as they are. And I'm like, that's not good either, because it's like an 80-foot drop. And I'm like, that can give you the bends if they're not going down Like, for as much as the script pretends to give a shit about that over there, it's like, here's an actual legitimate exercise where that could happen, and they just completely ignore it. And I'm like, all right, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how Indian pearl divers do it.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's just funny that they don't even, like, it's fine.
It's weird because that's a thing from another Jules Verne book, because that's a scene in 20,000 Leagues.
Yeah.
Which, oh boy, do I have a ton of 20,000 Leagues
Oh
scripts.
boy, I've seen a couple of them. Is that Fincher version out there that's supposed to be?
I have it.
You do? Oh my god. Okay, alright.
It's interesting.
It's steampunk, right? Or it's like...
Not exactly.
Not exactly, but it is, like... It would have been for him, I guess. But...
Yeah.
Anyway, neat.
Okay, so they use a huge boulder. Gia hangs on to Donnelly as they get pulled down. He cuts the rope, swims them past the ledge, and there's some tension where they almost lose the medical bag, but Donnelly gets them free, makes it out the other side, blah, blah, blah. Elliot's group moves through a dormant lava tube, and Nancy notes that Seven isn't feeling the effects of the narcosis, and she doesn't know why. That feels like it's building to something completely different than what we get.
Yeah, I could see that.
And they soon exit the tunnel, which opens out onto a massive chamber with a pool of magma at the bottom, and the exit on the other side. And this is where it gets really stupid.
Here we go.
They make their way across the pool via the cool patches of igneous rock. And, oh my god, 2 years ago me wrote down, somehow this seems incredibly bullshit.
You were right then, and you're right now. It's not... I mean, it's fine. It's like... Again, it's fun. It's funny to see this script wrestle with, like, fictitious ideas and realistic ideas. And it's like, this would have been fine in a script where we were kind of shooting from the hip with the fun kind of movie logic. But yeah, and it also feels kind of... Well, go ahead.
Convection? What's that?
Now, has the other team, has the Seven and... Was it Nancy that was with him? Or was it the other girl?
It was Donnelly and Gia.
Okay, it was Donnelly and Gia. So they're on the other side of the magma, I think. Like
they're on. Yeah, they are. Yeah, yeah. They're gonna get there.
Okay, all right. Okay, keep on going then.
But so they make it to the other side. Joe offers to climb the wall to the exit and anchor the line, which he does. But Donnelly and Gia still haven't arrived. Byrne, who is feeling the effects of the narcosis the worst and starting to freak, gets sent up next. Byrne makes it up, and Joe sends the RI back down, which Elliot begins to prep for Nancy to ascend next. And then Shang and Seven have another conversation about their respective spiritualities. And Seven's like, you don't have to feel guilty about the people who died down here because you didn't know shit, blah, blah, blah. It's usual stuff.
Yeah.
And Elliot just gets Nancy, who is starting to hallucinate, hooked into the RI when he catches sight of the creature, which is blending into a stack of igneous rock, as it bends its head backwards and looks at him with amber eyes.
Yep.
It then leaps forward, slashes Shang's throat, prompting Elliot to open fire with his rifle. This catches Donnelly's attention, and he and Gia start to move more quickly. Elliot, Nancy, and Shang all hook up into the RI, but Seven chooses to stay behind and buy them time to escape. The creature just slashes Seven's shoulder and kills him before chasing after the other three. Yeah, nice time buying.
Yeah. Once again...
Seven?
Are you...
Okay,
keep going, sorry.
7, more like 6.5.
So we get an extended action sequence once again with a monster we can't see, apparently, because they still have not revealed what it is we're looking at, even though it's got amber eyes, and we're seeing it in a perfectly lit up lava encounter, right? The bit with Seven was pretty cool. He kind of comes out. He does it's done up in the script where he comes out with his. Actually, I think it's a shot that is in the cave that Cole Hauser does, because Cole Hauser's turned into like a monster too, right? He's like kind of getting weird too, and he doesn't that movie end with him doing a thing where he's got the two spelunking hooks, and he does like a Rain of Fire Matthew McConaughey jump at one of the monsters?
Oh my god, that comparison!
But that's totally what he does.
Yeah, that's what. Yes, it is.
Oh, I think Seven does kind of a similar thing here, but it's not. He doesn't jump at him. It's like they kind of build up the fight between the two of them, and then the monster just wrecks him. And it's like, yeah, of course.
Although the one in the cave isn't as funny as the one in Rain of Fire, because
it's nuked. Yeah,
that scene was in the trailer.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
I think that was the first Matthew McConaughey movie I ever saw as a kid. Christian Bale, too.
Yeah, man. And Leonidas.
Yeah, I didn't even realize Gerard Butler was in that until I rewatched it like a few months ago.
He's the buddy.
I'm like, oh shit, Gerard Butler he plays Luke Skywalker in the Empire Strikes Back play they're putting on.
Yeah.
Reign of Fire is fucking weird.
It's good,
guys. If you're listening to this, you gotta watch. It's a movie you could only make then.
Yeah, it's legitimate though. It's fun. So we finally get our big action sequence with a monster. Seven goes down. Yeah. Sean goes down. Our money wallet man goes down, and I think the rest of them escape up through the hole in the ceiling. Right?
Well, what happens is that the monster is chasing them.
Okay.
And then Joe and Donnelly appear above them. They fire a shitload of rounds into its chest, killing it, and then its body falls into the magma.
Okay.
Liquid hot magma. So I always have to do the Dr. Evil. And Gia injects everyone once they make it up and attempts to tend to Shang's neck wound, but man, dude's just bleeding out.
Yeah. Remember me. What was his name again? Quick, go through his wallets.
Joe brings up a legend his grandmother used to tell him about the Naga Padoha, a nocturnal creature that steals souls and can only be stopped by a spear to the chest. And Donnelly goes, like a vampire? And then they put it all together. Shang, who's in the middle of bleeding out through his throat, is like, yes, this creature inspired the vampire legend. And this is where it gets really, the logic of this kind of hangs together, but it evolved underground. They say its back became hard and unbreakable from rubbing against rocks. So what I'm getting from this, if I go into a cave and rub my back on the wall enough, I will become bulletproof.
Yes. Very specific Chinese caves.
It's like on Metal Gear Solid 2, where if you do enough pull-ups, your grip strength
becomes outstanding.
The most useless skill you can build up in that game.
I wanted to say it earlier, but I was going to wait because I thought about it, and I'm like, I love the bit earlier on in the script where Nolan gets bit, and there's like, okay, you got a guy that's been bit by something in the neck, and he's suffering some kind of weird disease you've never seen before. And meanwhile, there are bats all around us, right? And I love the two guys are like, are they insects? Are they bugs? And it's like, no, they're vampires. All right.
Yes. Also, the other one is they could only emerge at night, and its vertical mobility would make it seem to disappear.
Yeah. Okie dokie.
They must have attempted to invade the surface thousands of years ago, with the three cultures building the pyramids to keep them contained, the limestone serving to reflect light down the shafts, which is very mummy.
Yeah. So speculation. So speculation on that being the mummies that we saw above ground, possibly.
Victims.
Okay.
Because as we establish later, they're not really turning into vampires.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we're at the end, so let's just keep going. We got like 2 rooms left. then they get their exit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're literally right next to the exit.
Yeah. So they come out.
The exit's right there, but they take a detour.
Yeah. So they come out into this big area.
This raises a frightening question. Shang's like, what have they been doing down here all this time? I don't know, jerking off. He passes away soon after voicing this thought, and they dig a grave for him. Give him a burial at sea in the magma. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I'd be like, hey, pose my thumb like the Terminator.
Yeah, really. He landed face down. Oh well.
They actually get so Donnelly gets to work on repairing the main radio and manages to get one channel working. They actually get a message in from base camp, but the radio burns out before they can respond.
Okay.
They continue on to the vertical shaft that will serve as the exit, with Elliot forming a plan for them to rig in 500-foot stages.
Sure.
Retrieving the rope and repeating it is blah blah blah, technical stuff no one cares. They begin the process of climbing out when they get a ping on Nolan's locator, coming from a cave down the vertical shaft from them. And Byrne doesn't want to go down there, but Elliot and Joe insist on leaving no man behind. Byrne is really just here to whine.
Yeah, well, Byrne's here to he's trying to get out alive. He's made it this far. Let's see how it works out for him. He's a red shirt that's trying, let me tell you.
Lou didn't try.
Yeah. Lou didn't say enough. If Lou had had a few more lines, he'd be making it this far. But we got Byrne over here.
He's like Sam Rockwell in Galaxy Quest.
Exactly.
Okay, so Byrne checks the map, but Ellie and Joe are like, we leave no man behind, blah, blah, blah. Byrne checks the map to show them which way to go, noting that the cavern below them is located just above a massive methane sulfite deposit. That's convenient.
Yeah.
Then the team climbs down from there, finding themselves in a grotto with huge twisting stalagmites and lots of tiny stalactites on the ceiling. And the stalagmites are filled with catacombs covered in a membrane. They cut one open to find Nolan, who dies when they remove him, they yank an umbilical-like tube from the back of his head that spills blood everywhere, and he just dies.
Yep, they find Dom's wife down there.
What?
It was a Gears of War reference.
Oh, I've never played Gears.
The 3 people that remember that series 14 years later are like,
Is that a Gears of War 2
Yeah, it's
reference?
a Gears of War 2 reference. That's
okay, I have like a vague knowledge of that. Because I've read the script based on Gears of War 1, and there's this whole subplot about Dom and his wife that just never gets resolved. Yep. Alright, so he just dies. Good work, guys. He killed your friend.
Yep, Nolan's gone. That whole thing with the opening a million years ago, with him and Seven having like this unbreakable bond, just never gets brought up again, never goes anywhere.
In 2 other catacombs, they find the Chinese boy from the opening, and who was not even implied to have been taken, and Shang's brother.
Yeah.
And Byrne picks up crisscrossing signatures and wants to get above them to get a better reading. So they shoot a piton up into the ceiling, and he fucking Batmans his way up there. He discovers that the stalactites each contain a developing creature which is being fed blood from the people in the stalagmites.
Blood for the blood god.
And he freaks out and zips down, saying that we're food for its babies. It's La Magra.
Yep.
And they've been breeding all this time, and someone's trying to ice skate uphill. And so jerking off was not far from the actual truth. They've basically just been fucking this entire time.
Yep.
The fresh airflow coming in from the new rifts caused by the earthquake is making them react and hatch.
They're waking up.
They're eating her, and then they're going to eat me.
No.
Elliot asks where the sulfite deposit is, having determined to use their remaining C4 to blow the deposit and destroy the grotto. Byrne complains again, but then Elliot says we gotta do this because they could go hunting on the surface, and my son's up there.
Ian count 4.
Byrne directs them to the sulfite. Oh god, I've had a guy named Ian on this show before. This would be so funny if he was here. And Byrne directs them to the sulfite deposit, which is about 1,000 feet away. They'll need to place the C4 down a dry lava tube to get close enough. Elliot is too big, so Nancy has to go in because character arc, I guess.
Yep.
And she asks him out to move. They get out of here, and then she kisses him. I'm like, yay.
The breeding pair, hooray.
The James Mason and the woman in the 50s movie have better chemistry, and they spend the entire movie insulting each other.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
It's like
order.
it is classical like 50s sexism, but she gives as good as she gets.
Okay, nice.
Which makes it very fun.
All right.
They have a whole argument about how like they need to breathe better down there, and he has her get rid of her corset.
Okay.
And the duck steals the corset.
Oh shit! All right, so they come out swinging at each other. I love it. All right.
It's so fun. The movie actually is very funny at times. Elliot likes to stay behind in case Nancy makes it out, and he actually tells her, "I like the way you kiss." Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Oh, apparently Donnelly is going to be taking care of Ian if he doesn't make it out.
Yeah.
Ian, your Uncle Nolan didn't make it, so we're gonna have to go to Tijuana together.
Yeah, really. I'm gonna show you how to fire guns.
Have you ever heard of a donkey show, son?
God. Okay, so they're rigging this place to blow, right?
Yeah, Nancy, she gets down, she gets to the proper space, sets the C4's timer for 20 minutes. She climbs back up. Elliot spots movement in the grotto. She makes it out. Elliot sets up a sensor light, noticing a creature perching on a stalagmite. And these creatures, I sent you the picture earlier of the weeping bats from Silent Hill Downpour.
Yeah.
That's what I was picturing the whole time.
That's what you were picturing? Let me pull up a picture. Oh, I got it right here. Let me just take a look at it. You know what's funny? The way that it was described. See, that's kind of how I saw it. Yeah, so it's humanoid. The picture I got here is humanoid with like a big, like nondescript face and big mouth and stuff, kind of bat-like features. I saw something that was way more bat-like. Like, did you ever play Resident Evil 5? The one that's in there.
I've played all of them.
Okay. Yeah, you know,
wait,
there's as much contempt in that voice. I gotta let you know. Correction. I still haven't played Village. Okay, I haven't played 7. There's a bunch of them I haven't played yet. I've got most. I
haven't played Village, and I haven't played the 4 remake.
Okay, I'm missing a few, but the big bat monster in 5, kind of a more. Now, I know that was like a bat and a bug kind of mixed together and stuff.
I hate that boss. I hated that boss so much because I could never hit the weak point.
I hate the boss the second time you fight it, when it's inside the pyramid. How do we keep circling back around to pyramids and these things? Anyway, I saw something that was a little bit more bat-like with the face and the nose and the ears and like more of a monstrous thing, because the kind of the way it's described at this point. Because we get like a chase sequence here, and it does sound more loping, more quadruped as opposed to bipedal. So once again, leading to my idea that they hadn't quite figured it out until 5 pages to the end.
Leave it to the artists to figure it out.
Yeah, concept guys will get it. They know what they're doing.
John Peters will bring the kids in.
It's a giant polar bear.
But no, I picture those because you meet them in a cave system at first.
Okay.
And they crawl around on the ceiling and they drop on you.
Yeah.
But they stop being really intimidating after you leave the mine level, because you'll run into them in like an alley and they'll like chase you around on foot like rah, and they're like a lot less scary. And there's one in particular that hangs out underneath. There's like a small little overpass where one of the roads goes over another one, and there's one over there, and he will not follow you away from that spot. So you can stand like 10 feet away and just watch them go, drop from the bridge, go back up onto the bridge.
Just back and forth, trying to figure it out.
Yes, and I am a defender of that game, and even
I know you are.
They should have left those guys in the cave. But okay, so
that was fun.
And so he sets up a sensor light. The creature gets blinded by the light as it moves. Cut loose like a deuce, another runner in the night.
Yep.
Elliot killing it with a shotgun blast to the chest while it's stunned. As methane flames. See, that's one thing about the whole vampire thing that doesn't make sense. If you're shooting at something, you're going to be shooting it from the front.
Yeah, I mean, they could have worked in something a little bit more, but it's fine. Did you make note of the character that dies here? Whose body they trip over?
Oh, they trip over Burn.
Yeah, Burn. He made it all the way to the end, and he's gone. Oh, well. He shouldn't have bitched. If he'd been like, let's go get him, he would have survived. But
no, they take his body with them, and they play Weekend at Burns.
Yeah.
And so the stalactites all start hatching at once. They almost make it to the exit and the RI before the creatures cut them off, and then we finally get the detailed look at them.
Yep.
Its head looking like a cross of a person in the bat. Oh, hi, what's his name? From Batman.
Kirk Langstrom.
Bat's name. Kirk Langstrom. I almost said Kirk my brain wanted to say Kirk Connors, but I knew that was wrong.
That's a different animal. But yeah.
There is an army of man bats in Morrison.
And I think the description of all the little stalagmites, the little upside down ones that start hatching, that because they're little babies that are hatching, right? I was seeing the end of Van Helsing too. Which might have been...
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, which might have been another reason why I was thinking, like, kind of big bat, more overt bat monster. So
I just bought the 4K of that movie.
Nice! It's got tons of bonus features on it, or is it just the movie and trailer?
I think it's all the old bonus trailer features.
Bonus features? Nice. That's back when they cared, though. So
really? Weirdly, they didn't... I don't think they included the London assignment.
Oh. Was that the animated feature?
Yeah, that was the animated prequel that is
Dr.
completely
Jekyll.
out of... No, it is Dr. Jekyll, but it is completely out of sync with the actual movie. It makes no sense. Of course.
And I think there's a comic book where that's a build-up to
Dr.
that,
Moreau.
and it's Dr. Moreau. Yeah, and I'm like, I want to get my hands on that one.
No, it takes place in the movie after he kills Jekyll.
Okay. Oh, so
he goes into the sewers underneath Paris for like a minute.
That's awesome.
I've read it online.
All right.
Sorry, we're
there. We're there. We got to get to the end. So monsters everywhere, baby monsters. They're running to the exit. And
they're surrounded. Oh no, what will they do?
blow it!
Suddenly the monsters are blinded by a flare and pumped full of bullets. As it turns out, Donnelly came back down for them. So yeah, cool dude.
Yep. Yay!
Maybe don't give your son to him.
Yeah.
Son, you're going to learn how to drink like a man. You swallowed the tequila and the worm.
Yeah. It's been revoked.
They all attach to the RI and descend the rope out of there, moving fast as the creatures begin to climb the shaft after them. And then the timer counts all the way down, an explosion and massive fireball follow and wipe out the pursuing creatures, and I'm just imagining them jumping out of the way like John McClane.
Yeah.
Or Kong in Godzilla vs. Kong, where he jumps off the boat. And the three of them make it to a ledge where Joe and Gia are waiting. So the badass did survive. That's cool. So they climb out, they emerge from a fissure in the mountains within sight of the pyramids. Not only did they not go to the center of the earth, they didn't come out in like a particularly different place either.
Right. They just kind of pop. Well, Ian runs up and he's like, Dad. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, because Kalik shows up with a helicopter.
Right. Oh, that's what it is.
And so and so Elliot looks at the pyramid and he goes, how many pyramids are there in the world? And then they're like, oh, fuck. And then it zooms out into space.
Yep. To make a sequel that
That's
never
the
happens.
Journey slightly into the earth, number 2.
Oh my god. So the end.
Now in the 50s movie, they escaped by literally causing a volcanic eruption and riding the lava in a giant like ceremonial plate from the Atlantis temple that they say is made out of asbestos.
That's hilarious. But that's actually pretty badass though. Like at least that's a neat way to kind of exit out of the scenario. What do they do? What do they do in the book? Is it just do they just climb back out, or do they take like a fissure, like an air fissure?
They come out of a volcano, but I don't remember how they get into it.
Okay, well,
but they come out of a volcano. They come out of the same one. They come out of Stromboli.
Okay, all right. So yeah, so the end on that one. That one was. Did I say earlier? I know I told you this earlier. But I don't remember if I said it on the podcast. So I'll say it again, and we can clean it up later. But like this to me was not so much a script as it was like a collection of good to some really great ideas kind of thrown in there with like a wraparound narrative that really was just kind of going through the motions. Like it was, I don't want to say it was boring, but it was like the motions it was going through were really like tried and true. Like, oh Lord, we're doing this one again, huh? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, character has to get over their claustrophobia. I've seen that in another Fox script.
Yeah.
The actually really good AVP script.
Yeah. The Briggs script.
Yeah, the Briggs script. That script's fun. For a script he wrote on a lark, it's shockingly good.
Oh, it's outstanding because he was looking at the Dark Horse comic. But yeah, but the individual parts of this are neat. Like we skimmed over a bunch of it, but the actual.
I mean, how do we not?
Well, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Like I said, like there's not enough. Like I don't think there's enough here to really like fully comment on. But for what it's worth, the actual rigging and the journey to get down there is really cool. I wish the characters had been a little bit more there, but the sequences are badass. And that base jump was awesome. That would have been like one of the big highlights of the whole movie. Yeah. Like that would have been incredible.
The way I think of this is because the book is like half them journeying through caves and then half the weird shit.
Yeah.
This is like the first half of the book.
Yeah, okay. That's a pretty good way to look at it.
Because they almost die of, like, thirst in the book at one point.
Right. It's very realistic. Eating the moss off the gravel because we're dying here.
Yeah. I remember when I read the book when I was a kid, I didn't know the word fatigue.
Okay.
And so, in my brain, I was reading it as fatigue.
Fatigue. No.
Yeah, Axel almost dies.
But yeah, I can't think of too much more to really say about this one.
Like it's not bad.
It's fine. It was a solid shot, and I think it was meant to kind of turn heads, and I bet it did. But I wish a little bit more thought had been put into it. And we never know. I don't think this was like a dream job from these guys. I think this was an assignment job. but it was solid.
Well, I mean, the 50s movie was a Fox movie.
Yeah.
So they were probably looking at their old library and going, what can we do?
Right.
And apparently it wasn't that long after this that the Brendan Fraser movie started developing.
Now, who put that one out?
That was New Line.
New Line. I almost watched that, but go on.
But it was made by Walden Media, who did the Narnia movies.
Really? Okay.
And their sister company did Sahara, the Matthew McConaughey live custom movie.
It's all circular.
Which is a movie I kind of love, even though it's dumb as shit.
I haven't seen Sahara in a long time, but I remember I do remember genuinely liking it. I remember it being one of those things that I think it came out when I was living in Germany when I was like a teenager and living in Germany, and it was one of those movies that I saw, and I thought it was like a well-liked big Hollywood hit, like kind of just another big studio hit. It made a whole bunch of money and was like, people liked it. And then I came back to America, worked at Blockbuster, and it's like, oh no, that was a massive failure, right? Like that was like a huge career-ending failure in some cases on like an executive level.
And the lawsuits that followed, fascinating to read.
And I'm like, what? Well, I liked the movie. I thought it was a fun action movie. I guess like kind of more of a Sunday afternoon action movie, but still.
It was my birth month movie because that was back when you didn't get much in April. I remember my birthday movie a few years before that was The Scorpion King.
Nice. Is that why The Scorpion King is?
Why it keeps coming up.
Why it's constantly referenced. Is that your jam?
No, it's because me and Jake, who started doing the he did the Monster-thon on his channel where they watched all the Universal Monster movies and they actually watched all the Scorpion King movies. And we started talking to Screenplay Archaeology together, and now we're also doing a Universal Monsters podcast. So it's just a reference point for us.
By the way, be sure to go check out your Universal Monsters podcast.
That's literally the name because apparently no one else had taken it.
Then take it.
All right. I don't know why this didn't happen, but I mean, this is Rothman era Fox, so you never know.
Are we talking about the one we just read, or are we moving into the next
one? The
one?
one we just read. Okay. I'm saying I don't know why this didn't happen. Maybe it was similarities to other projects.
I just don't think it was strong enough. Like, I don't think it was strong enough to move forward with. I think it...
Yeah, but you know these producers never think like that.
That's true. Well, I want to be cynical and say that, but I'm also like, there's some stuff here. Like, they were courting China. Like, this is early in 2000s. Like, this is a little bit before I would normally think of, like, Hollywood kind of courting China with stuff.
No, that was a different Brendan Fraser.
That was yeah. But yeah, no.
I'm surprised. They must have had different rules in China back then, because I'm surprised at some of the shit they got away with in that.
Yeah. I would be curious. So this next one that we're going to do, was that still at Fox as well?
Yes, it was still at Fox. All right, and so that moves us on to the next script, which is also written for Fox. And this one actually has a title page and a date. It's dated March 2005, written by Eric Jendresen, whom... He's mainly known for Band of Brothers. I first came across his name because I hadn't seen Band of Brothers yet, and I had read his Star Trek The Beginning script, which is kind of a misleading title because it takes place between Enterprise and the original series.
Okay, so it's actually in the canon?
Yes, it is.
Huh.
It's a Romulan war story, and they basically explain why the Enterprise isn't involved, as in they were on Risa when the Romulans attacked Earth.
Okay. It sounds to me, you were kind of explaining it earlier, and it kind of sounds to me like it does have some similarities to the Abrams version, at least as far as, like, the Romulans being the main antagonists and there being war and stuff that kind of pushes it forward. Is that...
Well, other than that, but it's trying to tell the story of the Romulan War that happened in the backstory of TOS.
Oh.
That was supposed to be where Enterprise was going before it got canceled.
Huh. Okay.
And it's not a bad script. It's very you can tell it's a first draft, and it ends on a cliffhanger because they were planning a trilogy.
Okay. All right. It was going to be a franchise starter.
Yeah, there's a Jendresen quote where he said this one would be the Iliad, part 2 would be the Odyssey, and I didn't have any clue yet what part 3 would be.
Always good to go in with a solid plan. Oh wait.
And like the main character is like an ancestor of Kirk. And his father is a crazy neo-Nazi who lives on Antarctica.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's interesting.
It's a good script, but you can tell that there would have been many more drafts.
Yeah. Well, checking this guy's Wikipedia, it definitely seems like his career starts with Band of Brothers. At least that's where his more like big credited stuff starts with. And it's really interesting because it's like Band of Brothers is the big one, and it's like, okay, well, everybody knows that, and then he did some stuff between that and now kind of out of nowhere he's writing the Mission Impossible 7 and 8, the Dead Reckoning Part 1 and Dead Reckoning not Part 2, because it's not being called that now, but
and he noticeably was absent from the writing staff on the Pacific and the new one, Masters of the Air.
Yeah. He didn't have anything to do with those. But I did a little bit of research now, actually, like looking into his, like what, cause like that's a hell of a way to start out, is with, Band of Brothers. And it's just like, so where did he get his start? And it's like, well, he wrote some books as an author and as a co-author. But it seems to me he might have also been like backgrounds, either script doctoring or writer's rooming, because he talks about how he met Christopher McQuarrie at a Sundance screenwriters like retreat, like back in the mid-90s. So he's been around for a while, I guess. I'm going to go ahead and assume he's like a background guy that's worked on a ton of things that we might know. You know what I mean?
Wrote a bunch of specs that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
In fact, I might hit up well, you keep talking. I might hit up a list here, see if there's any other scripts of his.
So there's not a lot of, I didn't even really see, because I looked up Eric Jendresen, Journey to the Center of the Earth. I did like the basic Google rounds just to see like, okay, what do the trades have to say? And it's like not much, nothing at all as far as I saw. Maybe in a trade here or there. But I did think that there was kind of a funny little quote in here. Funny because of where you and I know where this is going to go. But where he's talking about the Star Trek script, and when they first approached him, and he said no. And he kind of commented that, and I quote, and I said no, first of all, because I don't really like science fiction. I'm kind of an odd purist that way. If it's not Jules Verne or H.G. Wells or Edgar Allan Poe or Arthur Conan Doyle, then I'm not interested. The space opera genre of science fiction is just something that has never held any interest for me. But they didn't want to take no for an answer. So, but it's just kind of interesting that he name drops Verne, and like even puts him up on a pedestal to say like, this is how science fiction is done right here. So he makes it sound like, okay, we're going to get like a 1-1 to the book with this, right?
No,
not at all. Nope. No dinosaurs here.
Nope. Weirder than that.
Oh yeah. I do not want to ruin this. They are not bat monsters.
Nope. And okay, the only other unproduced script of his I'm seeing on this list is something called Mission Blacklist.
Okay.
And from 2012, co-written with two other guys, one of who their last name is Kussman. If that's who I think it is, that guy co-wrote The Mummy.
Awesome.
The Tom Cruise.
Oh.
And he's also in Jack Reacher.
Oh, no.
Moby Dick by Brian Helgeland? What? Okay, so yeah, this is an interesting stuff. So this one is set up where it's this guy called Ned, who's like this kind of like unconventional kind of teacher. He's sort of like he's sort of like Jeff Bridges in that
in King
forgettable
Kong.
Ridley. Not King. I wasn't thinking King Kong. I was thinking that non-existent Ridley Scott movie, White Squall.
Oh shit! Yeah, he is. Yeah.
It's which is just lame dead poets on the water.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. I went through all the Ridley Scott movies a few years back, and that one was just like,
that one's a rough one, huh?
That one's just real boring.
Yeah. Runaway Rich Kid.
Which is like, yeah, it's but he's like a runaway rich kid who has a like tough relationship with his geologist father. Well, his father disappeared. He went down this rabbit hole of maybe what could be down under the crust of the earth, and he disappeared, and so he goes to follow him with his colleagues and his ex-girlfriend.
Yes. very, very much smaller cast this time around. We've only got 4 as opposed to a dozen.
Yes.
So much
no
easier
Lou.
to manage. Yeah.
No Lou.
No Lou. No Burns.
No, so sadly no Lou. So this one starts in space, and it's actually relevant to the story this time. Don't worry. It starts on a supernova, and we follow a particle of it as it travels across the galaxy to our solar system. And as we reach Earth, we zoom in on an area just south of Cancun. And there's a black boy named Maurice is rappelling down a cliff face. He freezes halfway there, and so Ned Cross, who's the head of this Seaward Bound, it's a program for underprivileged kids, and he's a white dude with dreadlocks.
Yeah. This whole like first 2 pages are a little much. That is to say, it's a lot. It's like, Eric, you got to tone this down a little bit. Like the way he describes the little kid's name is Maurice. We'll get to him a little bit later, but the way he describes Maurice out of the bag or out of the box, and also the way he describes Ned is just like really jarring and like, oh Lord.
If I were directing this, I'd be like, take the dreads out.
We're gonna take the dreads off of Ned, and we're also gonna take like some of all the extra bling off of Maurice. The
gold cat.
Yeah, like come on, Eric. Well, that's all right.
No, the dreads. I'm just thinking of the end of Joe Dirt where he gets the dreadlock wig.
Yeah. Like, what year is this? This is 2005. We got a white guy with dreads.
You just said what year? You just said what year is this, and you haven't finished. Actually, I won't spoil that. But yeah, so yeah, it's like they climbs down next to encourages him to keep going. The line slips. Maurice's shirt gets caught in the belaying device. And the rest of the class watches. Ned swings them out over the water and cuts the line. It's like, oh,
yeah,
got to open on an action sequence.
Oh yeah, it's much smaller. It's not an 8-page action sequence. It's a little much. Again, hadn't quite figured out the flow of the dialogue yet. But I mean, Ned's laying it on thick. We're like, because it's him and Maurice, and they're like the line is snagged, and he's like, "What are we gonna do?" And blah blah blah. And he's like, "You're gonna be a hero one day." And then he cuts the line, and I'm like, "Oh my god, we're 2 pages into this. We're doing this, all right."
I mean, at least it's not a dude dropping a camera and causing a mini disaster.
Oh god, yeah. $1 billion geological disaster. Yeah. All right.
And so Ned is and so that night they sit at a campfire on the beach, and so we get Ned and Max, who's an astronomy grad student and one of the instructors. They tell the kids about how humans have only been on Earth for a fraction of the time that has existed, and Ned is segueing this into a lesson about personal growth when Maurice points out an abnormally bright star, which is the supernova.
Yep.
And while that lecture is going on, baby sea turtles emerge from the sand and begin to make their way to the sea. And so they douse the fire to let them navigate by moonlight. Mm-hmm. And when one of the baby turtles accidentally turns itself over onto its shell, Ned stops them from turning it back over. He asks them if it's right to interfere with nature. And Maurice's argument is that nature placed them there, which would make it okay.
Right.
And so Ned, he recounts the story about how his geologist father wouldn't let him replace a baby sparrow in its nest unless he had a good reason to do so, but he doesn't finish, though. And he says the goal of Seaward Bound is to teach them to think for themselves, and they've all been good students and a good crew. And so Maurice decides to turn the baby turtle over and let it keep walking. That little story there, I'm not going to give anything away, but that's very important character-wise, and theme-wise, they are setting up a lot in this scene.
So strong. It's so strong. Yeah, Jendresen, like, if whatever, like, we were just joking around with that opening being over, but it's like, yeah, but this, now this is him setting up, like, really, really good stuff narratively, like, in a way that the script we just finished reading didn't do at all. Like, the script we just finished reading was just bare bones, basic script stuff, and like, this is long-term themes, this is character development. You know, we're planting seeds. We're going to get to another one here in a little bit. We're big time seeds for, like, it's foreshadowing, but like, I don't want to call it that because it's like, it's really strong.
It's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. So this
it's good though. It's good.
It's really
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so Ned returns to his schooner, which he has called the Lord Jim, which is not something you want to call your boat.
Right.
Because, I mean, the inciting incident of Lord Jim is the Patna hitting a rock. It's like all those stupid science fiction movies where for some reason they named their spaceship Icarus.
Okay.
And I mean that at least one really great science fiction movie does that, The Planet of the Apes. And so, yeah, where he gives biologist Chen Li, who is Max's girlfriend, he gives her a turtle egg, and she asks him about what happened on the beach, and he starts reading off the numbers of Bible verses because she was asleep.
Right.
Because she was asleep with the Bible on, she pretended to be reading it even though it was upside down. And I actually looked these up, and one of them wasn't actually real.
Oh, no. Oh, I didn't bother looking it up because I just took the word. Took his word that he knew what he was talking about.
2 years ago, me wrote down one of which isn't real. I didn't bother to check this time.
Yeah, so we're setting up like he's a know-it-all with religion. It's not, we're going to learn more about it, but this was a bit much, I thought. I did like how he turned the book around in her hands while she was asleep.
Yes.
Yeah, so,
that was funny.
Yeah.
I love that he's a smartass.
Yeah. They have things to do in the script that I love. Like, they're always, all the characters, because we only got 4 this time around, we're probably not going to call it out, definitely not going to call it out every time it happens, but, like, they're doing stuff. Like, they're doing stuff with their hands. Yeah. It's all written in there. I love it. It's great.
And just the whole 4-character thing reminds me of what Steven D'Souza told Capcom when he was taking the job to do Street Fighter. He said 7 characters is the absolute most an audience can keep track of.
Yeah.
And then right before they were about to start shooting, Capcom went, actually, you have to put every character from the game in there.
Yeah, here's a list of 25.
Yeah, you could keep out Akuma if you can't quite fit him. Okay, and so he retires to his stateroom, which is filled with books. He has a picture of a young woman named Piper Besser with the caption saying she's the youngest woman to summit Everest. And he stares out the porthole at the supernova. And so the next day, Ned climbs to the ship's topsail yardarm as it puts in at Cancun. While the other kids are getting on the airport shuttle bus, Maurice climbs up to Ned to ask him about if he actually let the bird die or not. But he's really just unsure about going back to his life in Detroit.
Yeah.
And Ned tells him another story about how, basically it's an object lesson about how the real prison is in your mind. And Ned's father was a geologist who sold out and went to work for an oil and gas company. And I'm like, dude, you are way too much of a hippie.
Maurice is just like, oh, okay. Like, I didn't expect to hear about your dad.
Maurice is probably like, yeah, I would do the same thing. Get me more gold caps.
Yeah, really.
And, I grew up in this nice house about it. And he walked away from it because his father said he couldn't.
Right.
So Ned was a real, hard case as a teenager is what we're getting from this.
Yeah.
And it is a little much, but it actually pays off really well.
Yeah.
In terms of, character stuff. And so Ned then just jumps off the friggin' yardarm and dives into the water.
Yep. Gotta make a big exit for the kids.
He dives 80 feet down. He swims under and notes that there's all these barnacles and shit on the bottom of the boat. So apparently, they don't use keel hauling as discipline.
Jesus.
I mean, that'll clean the bottom of your boat. And so he surfaces and tells Max and Chandler, we're hauling it out of the water today. And we cut to Ned scraping the sea life from the hull and the keel as it sits in the wooden cradle in the shipyard. And so we get an exposition scene of Max talking about how the supernova first exploded in 5737 BC. And Chen Li is flirting with Max through all this. And it's constantly cutting back to Ned going, are you gonna help?
Right. Right, he's over there scraping the barnacles off, putting his effort into it. Well, they're just having a back and forth. But it's cool because it's written in such a way that he's kind of keeping up with the conversation, too. There's a little bit of, a little bit of double, not lewd double entendre, but a little bit of, that kind of stuff, wordplay.
And so Chen Li, she heads back into the boat because she hears a noise. And Max mentions there's unusually high numbers of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions taking place. Put a pin in that.
Yep.
And Chen Li comes back out telling Ned they've received a call from his mother, which gets him to drop what he's doing and reach for the phone, and it cuts immediately to him at his house.
Yeah.
Very good pacing.
Yep.
In Westport, Connecticut, where he reunites with his mother, Lillian. And we learned that Ned hasn't been home in 10 years since he dropped out of Harvard and his father Jack kicked him out of the house. And we also mentioned that he became a Hindu around this time, but it didn't stick.
I think this is the first time they specifically call out him being a Hare Krishna. And it's like, that is a thing that modern day, like, I think today's audience is not going to get at all. And I only barely grabbed that reference because of older media. Like, I understand.
Yeah, there was a Hare Krishna zombie in Dawn of the
Yeah,
Dead.
there was. That's actually one of the first ones I think of. And I'm like, yeah, it's just, I mean, like, I know it was a real thing and I know it happened. It's just, it's so different from, you know, like, I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah, post 9/11, you don't really see that.
Right, yeah.
And so a year after that, Jack started taking trips all over the world. Jack's his father, and to Mammoth Cave. There, I guess he found the corpse of Elliot's dad. Mount Shasta, which is sometimes associated with Lemuria.
Okay.
Argentina, Tibet, etc. They mention Mato Grosso, Brazil. He'd take Lillian with him, then leave her behind and not say where he was going or what he was doing until she eventually stopped coming with. And his last 3 trips were to the Indian Himalayas, and he hasn't come back from the last one that summer. They can't find the key, so Ned kicks down the door to the stone cottage that served as Jack's study, finding the place a mess. It's like a straight-up crazy person room.
It's the fucking Charlie board from Always
Yes,
Sunny.
it is.
Yeah.
It's fucking Matthew McConaughey's storage space from True Detective.
Totally. Oh, man.
And the walls are covered in clippings and printed pages. It's also the office from A Beautiful Mind.
Yep.
Among them, photos of caves and geological data. The floor is covered in various ancient artifacts, and there are lots of books, including religious texts, fringe theories, and science fiction, including Verne's Journey.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and I have it written in my notes. I'm like, is that where the title drop is going to be?
Yes, and it's interesting that Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth is a book in this, because that's the direction the Brendan Fraser movie takes.
Yeah.
Because in that, the book is a novel, but his brother is a Vernian. It's like a secret society that believes the books are true.
Okay.
And went to Iceland looking for the path to the center of the earth, and they go after him. And then apparently his mother's father, I think, was also a Vernian, because that comes up in the sequel where Michael Caine is like, oh, I'm a Vernian. I went to the island to look for Atlantis. And like half that movie is just Michael Caine shitting on Dwayne Johnson. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Terrible movie, though.
I have not seen that one. I'm good. I will say that I didn't recognize the pun until you pointed it out in the title, and that made my head hurt so bad.
They wanted to make Journey 3 from the Earth to the Moon.
It'd be kind of fun, though. I don't know. All right.
Yeah, but okay, where am I now? Yep, okay. Most of them were Ned's books once, which puzzles him. Sorry, son, you're out of the house. I'm taking all your shit.
Yep.
And Ned turns on the computer and begins looking up Jack's travel destinations, finding they have all been considered mythical entrances to the underworld. And Lillian then hands Ned a printed email written from Jack to Lillian from Ladakh, India, saying that he's found it, and that if he doesn't return, he tells her he loves her, and to tell Ned everything is behind them. I was about to make a really horrible joke, but I won't do it. And Ned, seeing a picture of himself of his father when he was 7, turns it over to find a moleskin notebook taped to the back of the frame, so it is literally just a shitty pun.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a dad, so the dad joke kind of makes sense. And I actually like how this next sequence is done, where it's intercutting between Ned reading the notebook and preparing for the journey.
I was just getting ready to start. I was going to wait for you to go through this, and then I was going to talk about it, because this is I love this, reading this in a screenplay. Like, this is direction.
But yeah, I can't read it out exactly as it happened. But
like, how's it go in your notes? Yeah.
I just say what happens in the notebook first.
Okay.
So yeah, according to the notebook, this all started when Jack was in charge of taking a 40,000-foot deep crust core sample in the Arctic seabed, which turned out to be solid ice. And this is impossible according to scientific theory, as the crust at that depth should be too hot for ice. He got to thinking about how we assume Earth's interior is molten because of a shadow zone that seismic waves don't travel through, and that they can't travel through fluids. Air is fluid too, though, and Jack began to wonder if there was an inner Earth, and he found a hole through the crust plugged with ice. So this is getting crazy.
It's getting cool, too. Yeah.
Yeah, there was no hard scientific data he could consult, so he turned to Ned's books, mythology, religion, and literature for a solution. He then drew parallels between different myths from around the world about an underworld or subterranean realm, and spent 9 years checking different sites only to hit dead ends every time. Jack then pursued a new possibility, heading to Ladakh and the monastery called, I am probably mispronouncing this, Fuktal Gompa, or Through the Cave.
Fukta Gompa, yep.
On his second visit, the monks promised that if he came back the following year and no one inquired into the subject in the meantime, they would show him what he wanted to see, and that's where the journal ends.
How very Doctor Strange. Yeah.
Teach me. No.
Yeah.
Back to Sam Raimi. Ned tracks down Piper, who turns out to be his ex, and asks her to join the expedition. And there's this kind of running friction between them of, who broke up with who, blah, 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 which doesn't really amount to anything.
Yeah. It's them just kind of trying to find a way to get them to bicker and build character with each other. It's one of the few weaker aspects of this.
It's not, their character isn't bad, but it could be a lot worse.
Yeah, well, it's so funny because they're obviously excited to see each other again. Like, Piper she's not mad. It's like she's kind of ready to start over, kind of like flustered with him.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's fun, but it is the Piper. I keep wanting to say Elliot because of what we just went, because of the last script. But the Piper Ned relationship is kind of one of the rougher ones. But there is some payoff. They got some good moments together. But. Yeah. And I guess I'll just go ahead and point it out here. This whole time what they've been doing is kind of like doing these different stories at once. So so it's like the father's talking and then Ned's talking, and you're seeing bits of the father going up there while Ned's like having a lunch with Piper, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so well kind of cut together and written together. Like, it's got strong, clear like script direction, and it's like, especially after the last script, which had a lot of and then they're there and then this happens. It's very like hitting, like no transitions. This is like full on like story. This is like storytelling. So yeah man.
And so, and then he calls up Max and Chen Li, who are still scraping the boat finally.
Yep.
and he tells them to find someone to watch it while they join him and Piper on the trip. And they fly from New York to Frankfurt, where they encounter Hare Krishna. We talked about how Ned has gone through every religion imaginable. And it's like, yeah, by the time we broke up, he was Jewish.
Yeah. You thought he was Jewish? I thought he was Buddhist.
And so they fly to Delhi, and they travel overland from there, including riding on top of a bus to Ladakh, and then they begin the journey north to the monastery.
Yeah.
And so they can't... What was that?
I was going to say, yeah, it's fun. There's a little bit more... I think I mentioned it at the top of the last script, about this point in the last script when they were getting ready to get to the beginnings of the journey itself. It was like this one had a little bit more of the adventure, like getting there. It's not dwelled on. It's not like a 20-minute segment adventure sequence, but it's like 5 or 6 pages of them catching trains and taking a boat at a point. Like, it's a little more in depth than the old Indiana Jones line montage. So they camp near a bridge on the way there. During the night, Piper visits Ned's tent and they drink Isla, the tequila of Nepal, and they debate who broke up with who. She admits she walked out on him, but they debate as to why. And they go like, oh, Ned, you're overcompensating for your relationship with your father. And he's like, yeah, but he sold out, blah, blah. He's such a 90s kid. Yeah, hold on. I think I have something in my notes where I'm like, she calls his ass out so hard with one line of dialogue. It's so funny. Like, I'm like, page 29. Yeah, nails his ass to a wall with a line of dialogue. So, yeah.
And then he openly admits he's the most frustrated by the fact that they're not together anymore, and he downs another drink. I'm like, you should maybe leave that part unsaid.
Yeah.
And they soon arrive at the monastery, where Ned, who speaks the language, is granted an audience with the head lama, which I thought they only were in South America, but okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Did you mention? I know we talked about the Fukto Gompa, this place. Did you mention that this is like almost shot like if you're looking for like a mental image of what this place looks like they climb the mountain and they're like up next to this like kind of village on the side of this mountain in the Himalayas. It's, to me, it looks straight up the village at the end of Uncharted 2. That is straight up what that is. Like, to the point where I'm like, oh, that's where they got their idea. And has it been revealed I mean, is the implication there yet where they're going? The S word?
I don't know.
Okay, we'll leave it. You might have it in your notes, so we'll leave
I
it.
might have it in my notes eventually.
Okay.
Yes.
But anyway, so yeah, so
it may have come out during the black in the notebook.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Anywho.
Anyway, so and so he tells him he knows why his father came to the monastery, and after pulling out an ancient volume and flipping through it, he says that he will publicize what he knows if the head lama doesn't show him what he showed his father. Good old blackmail.
Yeah, really.
And this gets the head lama to take them to the cave.
Oh, okay.
And as they proceed through the cavern, Ned mentions he thinks he's just held the original manuscript of the Vimanika Sastra, a flight manual for an alleged piece of ancient Indian tech called a Vimana. And he says, this is what got him interested in Hinduism, because this shit was cooler than Star Wars.
Did you happen to look up a picture of the thing?
Vimana?
Yeah.
I have at some point.
Okay, they were not what I was hoping for. Well, that came out weird. They were not what I thought they were, because when I first read them, when I first saw this in the script, I was like, oh, that's neat, and just kind of kept going. But they kind of look like they're not like Leonardo da Vinci style flying contraptions. They actually look like like moving temples.
Yeah,
they're really strange looking.
I did read about the manuscript he's talking about here.
Okay.
And there's some question as to its legitimacy, I think.
Of course.
Yeah. But the whole cooler than Star Wars thing is crazy. It's pretty funny.
Hey, Fox.
The head lama leads them into a massive grotto, in the midst of which is a huge pit 100 meters across, and refuses to go any further for now. And before they continue, the rest of the group wants to know if Jack Cross was as bad as Ned makes him out to be, why he's so determined to find him. It turns out that the message in the notebook ended with an apology. And the flashback also hints that he's doing it for his mother's sake.
Yeah.
And so Piper takes over, setting up a belaying system where 2 descend and 2 belay, with the ladies going first as they're lighter in weight.
Yeah, now this one, there is a wall there, right? That they're rappelling down.
A wall?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
There is a wall that they're rappelling down, yeah. So it's not just open air yet.
Yeah, they're finding that the walls are mostly smooth granite and basalt, which is hard to gain purchase on, and it gets wider as they get lower, making rappelling impossible.
There you go, yeah.
And there seems to be no bottom to speak of.
That is insane. Like, I'm starting to think about, like, what this would have looked like, because, like, they got their flashlights going and stuff, and they're hanging down, and they're slowly going down, and they're sitting there, and it's just black, and it's like, if it's as dark, what did they say the walls were made out of? It's like black
scrolling
granite.
Smooth granite and basalt.
Yeah, so it's like, that would be really, really striking kind of imagery of just like, the wide angle shots of people, just kind of the two of them, the 2 women, right, are going down, because it's what is her name? Shengli?
Chenli.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just like, yeah, that's for this is doing something entirely different than the last thing we were doing, which was like base jumping and like RI hook shots and shit, like full on Indiana Jones action. And this one's a little more like, you'll see this one's a little bit more intense. This one's a little more like, I'll say this much, for all the horror that the last script tried to do, there's some stuff that's coming up that this script just kind of does almost like as an afterthought. I think that's way scarier than anything that was in the first script. So, all right, let's see where this goes.
All right, so Ned finally asks about who's looking after the boat, and Max, because they're both attached to the safety lines on the edge of the shaft, he says they got the right man for the job, but doesn't say who. Piper radios up saying they've reached the end of their 300 feet of rope with no bottom in sight, but right there she sees the initials JC written in chalk on the shaft's wall. So Jack has been here. And so in the monastery library, the head lama is meditating with the dagger nearby. He gets up and takes the dagger with him. And so back in the shaft, having knotted 2 links of 300-foot rope together, Piper has descended 600 feet but still finds nothing.
Jesus.
Oh boy.
Now, yeah, so wait, what's her name didn't come back up though, so did they have that much rope with them?
I guess they did.
Yeah, okay, anyway. So she goes way
they have
down there.
They have at least 900 feet.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yep.
I mean, I guess I figure
and
each one of the 4 bought 300, then That makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, and so suddenly Max's safety rope is cut and he and Chen Li fall down the shaft, and Ned turns around to see the head llama has cut the rope with his dagger. He says something in untranslated Hindi before cutting Ned's rope as well, making him and Piper fall. And as the four of them begin to fall down the shaft, and I'm just thinking of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey where they fall into hell. This is like a totally deep hole.
Okay, this was one of the sequences that I thought, when I was talking about the horror a second ago, I'm like, the way that he staged this was really unnerving. Because what it is, the way it kind of goes back and forth is it, I think it's, I keep wanting to say Piper. I think it's from Piper's perspective. And she's hanging in the dark, and then Chen Li's in the dark a little bit further out, right? And they got their flashlights and stuff, and they're lit up. And she's joking with Max up there, because he's the first one to fall. And they're joking back and forth, and you don't see what's going on up there. You just hear like, oh, ha, ha, oh, wait, what's going on? And she looks up, and you hear Max screaming. The camera doesn't like pan up or down. It's just looking at them and sitting there in the darkness. And you hear Max screaming, and he just like whips by. So it's like, like one of those down into the darkness. And then he goes, and I think as he whips by, Chen Li goes with him. So they're both screaming, like that. And it's like, that's really intense. Like, that's a really like, oh, I thought they were dead. Like, I was like, oh, well, they're out of the script.
Yep. They're joining Luke. Yeah. But not exactly.
Nope. So everybody's fallen.
And so as they're falling, we get cutaways. I thought it was weird how they intercut this. We get Lillian in the house in Connecticut, and we find out that the boat is being looked after by Maurice.
Yeah, it's played up for laughs, where it's like they're falling and they're falling and they're falling, and they realize that like they're still like they're talking. I guess they have masks on because they're talking about terminal. They're actually having an audible conversation about terminal velocity, and so it's like them kind of coming to, for just like 2 pages, kind of like 2 minutes worth of time here, them coming to terms with the fact that they're falling really fast, intercut with like the reveal of who's been taking care of the boat this whole time, and it's Maurice out there like on the boat and actually doing a pretty good job of things, right? Like all things considered, Maurice is a bro.
Yep. And so the four of them, they fall for a very long time until they seem to start falling up, like rising.
Yeah.
Ned catches up to Piper and holds on to her, and they continue to rise towards a pinpoint of light before gravity seemingly kicks in again and they fall. Ned, letting go of Piper, manages to grab onto the shaft's wall of 2 ice axes. He's doing a friggin' Tomb Raider reboot.
Yeah.
Piper slams into the wall, breaks her shoulder, arm, and leg, and is knocked out cold as Ned hammers a nut into a crevice and hooks in a carabiner. And so Ned tries to climb the chasm, but he can't get purchase with the ice axe. And he confesses to the unconscious Piper that she left and it was his fault because he was really stubborn, but he misses her, blah, blah, blah. Right as a coil of old rope falls on his head. And so Ned uses 2 Jumars to climb up the rope, eventually coming to a knot where 2 pieces of old rope have been tied together. Ned eventually emerges from the 100-yard across chasm and finds himself on the inner surface of the hollow earth, which is rocky and covered with moss, and a low-lying cloud formation blocks further visibility, but with a sepia-toned light shining through it.
We got a legitimate hollow earth this time. I'm so excited. None of this upper crust bull crap. Get out of here.
We've made it to Pellucidar.
Yep.
But Ned sees that the rope is tied off to an ice axe embedded in the ground, but nobody else is around, so he proceeds to pull Piper up. And he gets her out of the chasm, only for a hand to grab his shoulder. Ned turns around to see his father, Jack Cross, alive but older. And Jack is surprised to see his son is in the middle of saying that he was wrong about something when Ned's radio crackles and Max's voice is heard calling for help. And so Ned immediately grabs the rope, throws it right as Max and Chen Li reach the point where they'll start falling again. So they climb up, meet Jack for the first time, who once again says that he was wrong. He tells them that they fell 800 miles through the Earth's crust and felt the gravity flip as they neared inner Earth. And as the fog and clouds start to clear, Max asks if the planet is hollow. And Jack says that he was wrong. Earth is the planet. It's a spaceship.
Oh my god.
And then they get an unobstructed view of the inner Earth, the power and light source in the true center, a translucent crystal sphere filled with liquid iron and nickel, which is what the actual core is supposedly made out of.
Yeah, this is how,
which I think is kind of cool.
This is how you sell a movie, people. That was great. That was quite the that was quite the reveal leading up to that. And I think it's on page 60. I think the reveal is at the hour mark, and it's like, oh, that's so badass.
We got 55 more minutes.
Yeah, shockingly so. Both of these scripts took so long. This one was really good getting there, but both of them, the journey takes a while to get there. And I love that you brought up Jack, and I'm like, I have it in my notes, like in the text written as two-fisted scientist adventurer in the character slot. And I'm like, so it would have been a cameo. And I'm like, that would have been fun. Real Race Bannon, Papa Johnny Quest vibes going on with him.
Yeah, the question is, who do you get?
Yeah.
But this illuminates the curved inner surface marked by moss-covered hills and valleys and still inner seas, which all curves away over their heads, which would be an insane visual for them to accomplish even in 2005.
No, this would have been nuts. This would have been really, really nuts. But if it's Fox, they're working off of the Lucas's breakthroughs with the with the Star Wars movies. I guess you can see the other side of it, right? Because I'm like, how big did they say? Did you have in your notes how big it is? Like actually, the area?
They say the diameter at one point.
Okay. But,
I don't think it's in my notes, but they do say. But it is really big.
Yeah, my interpretation of it kind of changed, like as I was reading it, because my first thought was, oh, it's gonna be like jungle, like it's more like it's kind of what we saw in Godzilla and King Kong, like a traditional Hollow Earth type Lost World stuff.
Yeah,
but it's not, and I didn't catch that until a little bit later on, and then on reread that it's more like rolling plains of like this lichen, like this moss and like thick atmosphere. I don't think there's much in the way of like bushes or jungle or shrubbery. No. And it's all like attached to like plate metal, kinda. Like it's not so much rocky as it is like overgrown metal strips, right?
Something like that.
Like it's okay, it would have been. It's a little bit different than like maybe what you might be like expecting it to look like. I guess it's like, all right.
So there are two 1,000-mile wide metal plates at the north and south poles.
Yep.
There are also 7 gargantuan power stations which connect by flexible hoses to long metal shafts that point towards the inner surface. Ned asks what could have possibly done this, and Jack points across an inner sea to the vast city of Shambhala.
Yep.
Which he connects to lore from all over the world. We then see what lives there when they turn and see a 7-foot-tall humanoid with black eyes and opaque, iridescent, phosphorescent purple skin hovering over the injured Piper.
It's an engineer. Surprise. It's an alien movie. Get out of here, Fox. Get out of here, Ridley.
This is before Engineers was written.
Yeah, kind of weird, nondescript, large, gray, featureless alien creatures. What did they call them again? ITs?
Right here. Interterrestrial or IT.
Interterrestrial. Yeah. So, all right.
Reaches out to touch Piper, and Jack has to try to restrain Ned to keep him from interfering. Ned breaks away, but stops when he locks eyes with the IT, and Jack tells him not to assume anything. Their group is then surrounded out of nowhere by 6 more identical-looking ITs, and they have a circular aircraft with them, a Vimana.
Yep, there's one.
Jack tells Ned he has to trust him, as the first IT picks up Piper's injured body and carries her off into the Vimana. And so they all ride aboard it, which is powered by a complicated device that creates anti-gravity. And there's 2 balls they touch that maneuver it. And so Max, guided by Jack, determines that the central sun is held in place by anti-gravity, and that the center of gravity is halfway through the crust or the hull, and the Vimana lands at Shambhala on a black sand beach next to a sandstone cliff, and they all move to get off except for Ned, who won't leave Piper. He tries to get past the 6 ITs, so the one that's holding her, but when he touches one of them, his eyes roll back and he passes out. And we then see that the 7th IT is gone, and Piper is lying on the floor of the Vimana, covered in some kind of polyps. Yeah.
This is the first mention of the polyps. You know, before we go too much further, I was going to mention it's interesting. One last thing I wanted to mention about like the visual kind of the Hollow Earth, like that kind of reveal. There's not any like wildlife either, right? It's like it's never described. Like I don't think in the script that there ever is any description of any kind of like other life form out there.
Nope.
So that makes it that really makes it kind of. I mean, it's not scary. It's not, but it makes it kind of more disturbing in its sterility. Right?
Eerie.
Yeah, very eerie. Because it's like, there's Dad. Oh, hi, Dad. And then he's like, you got to come with me. She's hurt. Come with me. And then like, here are these 4 fellas, and they're 11 feet tall, and they just silently pick her up. And when you're like, hey, could you not do that? You're just down. So it's like, yeah, it's weird. It's interesting.
Yeah, and so we zoom into her, and we see a vision she is experiencing of a massive planet twice the size of Jupiter, with nuclear explosions taking place on its surface. A spherical spaceship 7,900 miles in diameter. What we know as Earth launches from the planet, is built from titanium plates with portholes at each pole, is powered by bursts of energy from 7 holes in the hull. It hurtles through space at 100,000 miles per hour and is already accumulating space dust on its hull.
So cool.
We go through one of the portals inside the ship where we see that the shafts with the nodes on the ends are connected to each hole, and then go out of the other porthole and watch as the ship approaches the Milky Way galaxy. And so the camera pulls out of Ned's eye, telling us he saw the vision as well as he awakes.
That's so cool. That's such a cool concept. This script. I expected this script to go in a lot of ways. A lot of ways weren't great either. But like this kind of stuff is like, oh, this is like real okay, so this is like legitimately good science fiction that you're coming up with here. And
it's basically saying Earth is a Dyson sphere.
Yeah. It's like an inactive Dyson sphere.
Speaking of Star Trek, for the Earth is hollow and I have touched the sky.
Yep. So him kind of going back to talking about that Star Trek quote does kind of ring true, where it's like, okay, yeah, he is trying some new stuff that isn't just traditional space opera and stuff. I can see, yeah, all right, it all makes sense. There is a plan. I love it.
I remember reading this for the first time and just losing my shit, going, whoa.
Yeah. All right, so now that all of our minds have been blown.
Yep, Chen-Li and Max are nearby, and Chen-Li is examining the moss, determining that it serves as food, meaning the ship is also a biosphere that can support life indefinitely. And so Piper is there as well, fully healed by what the polyps did to her. And so Ned gets up, sees her on the black sand beach, barely a mile away from one of the huge power stations. And so Max and Chen-Li have figured it all out. Space dust formed a crust of minerals and elements on the outside of the ship, the building blocks of carbon-based life, which sprang up after a couple of billion years. And essentially, life on Earth is just like the crud on the bottom of their boat.
The barnacles.
I love that thematic connection.
It's so good. It's all circular. It makes sense, and it was written with intention. I love this shit. I love this. Why does it feel like this is the rarity? Like, this should be, like, I was reading this, and I'm like, this is, like, how scripts should be, though, right? Right? Like,
yeah.
Like, this shouldn't be this should be common. Oh, man.
And so, yeah, Jack emerges from a nearby cave and says they now know almost as much as he does. And Ned says that's not enough, and Jack just shows him one of the polyps, which even Chen-Li can't place the species of. And Ned insists that they're getting out of there, but Jack objects, saying they're not the first, and that he has something to show him. He takes him into the cave, shows him the remains of an old campfire surrounded by 1920s exploration gear, along with a Bible inscribed with the name Percy Fawcett, the explorer who went missing in the Amazon in 1925 looking for the lost city of Zed.
Yep.
Which, that is a fascinating true story, if you ever read into it.
Yep. It's a great movie, too.
Yep.
And it's got the guy from Crimson Peak and Spider-Man. So, and Batman.
And Batman, I was going to say.
Yeah, it's a great story. I mean, it's a great movie, and it's a great story, and it's a fun story. And it's like them throwing that, that character in there, or that real life person in there is fun. But yeah. So
Yeah, that's just really cool. He's also King Arthur, don't forget.
oh yeah, it's true.
That was the same year as that movie. Jack says he has Fawcett's journal that he kept in the Inner Earth, which recounts how he lost track of the days down there. That's interesting that he puts that in there, because that's like, from what I've read, that's a recurring theme in Burroughs' Pellucidar books, that like time has no meaning in Pellucidar because there's no sun.
Okay, that would make sense.
I thought that was interesting parallel.
Yeah.
He's saying he says they can't go home. And Ned briefly mentions that the possibility of bringing others down there before trailing off about how the monks understood something. And he recounts what the Lama said when he cut the rope. Your soul belongs to Paramatma. Something he says means the witness within, or super soul, and related to Brahma, the creator, who commands the will of the many. And Jack is stunned by this, saying that Ned understands all that much already, but he doesn't say any more. And he then instead says that they can't bring more people there because the barnacles on the hull of the ship now have weapons before walking out of the cave. You and your damn nukes.
Yeah.
Klaatu Barada Nikto. And Ned angrily accuses Jack of giving up again, and that he just can't handle the discovery that he made. And Jack then tells groups about why they can't go back. The ship has been parked in orbit around the sun for 3 or 4 billion years, waiting for a sign that whatever made them leave home is now done with. Max puts together that the supernova is the sign. The ship is going to leave orbit soon, which will kill everyone on the outside of the hull in about 6 hours, as the power stations start turning on while they're talking. So there's like stakes.
Yeah, big time. I'm trying to remember, is this exactly how it played out in the script? I thought there was an action sequence going on before that. But okay, keep going.
I don't think so. So. And so Ned goes back into the cave, starts digging into a pile of rotted moss that's up against the wall of the cave. Max follows him in, asks him what he's doing. He says he's going to stop this from happening, which he can do because his vision showed him how the ship works. He then retrieves some saltpeter, which was on the cave wall under the moss, grabs Fawcett's telescope before leading Max out of the cave, and he says he's going to uses the telescope to explain to Max that the shafts are extending and will connect to holes like the one they entered through. The power stations pump fluid into the hoses, which is what makes them move, and then the shafts release the energy from the inner sun, which provides the thrust to the ship.
Yeah, he takes some leaps here with it. I mean, it's fun. It's fun when he first approaches it, because I think he has a line of dialogue about like it's a machine. Like, we could figure it out. Yeah. It's a machine. But then it's like he figured it out pretty quick though. Like, I mean, I can't imagine it was that easy that he could just be like, all right there.
Well, it's because it's implied that the vision quest showed him that.
Okay, yeah.
But I like his comparison where he says that, our boat got fucked up and it was just a pinprick-sized hole in the fuel line.
Ah, nice.
That's an interesting example.
Yeah.
But ignoring his father's interjections, and Jack does a lot of interjecting in some of these scenes.
Yeah.
Ned then explains how he plans to interfere by he refers to the pinhole-sized leak in their boat's hydraulics, once caused them to crash in Antigua. And the giant hose is just a really big hydraulic line. He's going to bust it. Jack says, because busting makes him feel good. But Jack says he doesn't understand what he's doing, and that's what Ned notices that Piper and Chen Li are missing, with Jack saying they wandered off. Max runs off to look for them. The women have found a grave site on the beach with 3 graves marked with crosses made of rifles, labeled J. Fawcett, so Percy's son.
Yep.
R. Rimmel, who was Raleigh Rimmel, who was on the last expedition. And this is the weird one. A. Saknussemm. Arne Saknussemm was the explorer who found the center of the Earth passage originally in the book.
Right. He's the guy that wrote the book that causes the characters from the book to go on the adventure, right? Like, he's the writer within the book.
Yes, and in the movie, he left a message on a plumb bob that he must have thrown into the lava and got spat out of. It basically got encased in igneous rock, and the geologist professor found it.
That's so many extra steps.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, but that's fun. That's a fun shout out.
Yeah. And so Chen Li starts having a breakdown over the magnitude of what they've discovered, as she's both a scientist and a person of faith, and Piper does her best to talk her through it, saying that this is no different than the stuff she studied under a microscope, just on a larger scale, and that she is capable of understanding it. I like that they have existential freakouts about this. It's so good.
Yeah.
And just as Max arrives, the metal plates at the poles begin to iris open, revealing the portholes beneath, which are choked with ice. And Max then tells them that Ned has an idea of what to do about the situation. They find Ned on the beach, making a mixture of charcoal from the fire, saltpeter from the moss, and sulfur from the back of the cave, which he pours into 2 Brunton flasks. And the mixture, he's making gunpowder.
Right. He's making some kind of an explosive chemical. Yeah.
He makes gunpowder, pours their remaining alcohol on top of that. God damn it, you lost the booze. And creates fuses from the strands of their climbing ropes. Max calculates they have 3.5 hours before the shafts are in place, and Ned plans to swim a mile out to the power station, climb to the 20 miles up it, and sabotage the hose. This is where I just cannot picture this.
Yeah, he does it pretty quick. In 3 hours? Wait, 3 hours until,
in less than
3 hours until Red Zone, right?
He does it in like 5 minutes. And like 20 miles is 3 times the height of Everest. It needed a little, this part needs some fine tuning.
Yeah, the whole end of, because this was kind of like, to me, this was the end of Act 2 building into the beginning in Act 3. And yeah, I mean, it did. And like you mentioned the characters having their existential freak out earlier. Like they kind of, because both characters are Christian and they kind of have to, like they kind of reaffirm it to themselves in that moment. It's good stuff and it's strong. Like there's a shitload of people that would identify with these characters big time. It's just, I noticed that like in that scene was when I felt like the actual writing was starting to get a little clunkier. Like it was like the dialogue kind of went from being like, this is a fucking movie. Like this is a finished movie script and everything, to going back to being a little more kind of rough ideas. Kind of, I mean, it's still good, it's readable, but it's a little more like stuffy, I guess. But it's so good. It's so good. The action sequences, I thought there was one that was happening during that, but I guess not. This coming up is peak. This is awesome. The next big one we get. So.
And so, where am I at? His dad is like, Jack's like, no, don't, and Ned just swims off.
Yeah.
And so 30 minutes later, Jack is alone in the cave, and we see that his shirt is unbuttoned, and he has a polyp attached to his chest. Piper soon enters, he covers it up, and she tells him, you're too similar to Ned, that's why you don't get along, you're both stubborn and unbending, and you've only given up because you're closer to the end of your life, and you can write it off as the will of God. And Jack just says, what if it is? Seeding something interesting. Yeah. So Ned has made it to the base of the power station, looks up, spotting a flywheel with a sprocket chain attached to it. And Jack talks to Max on the beach, despite remaining calm and still upset about what's happening. And when Jack tries to tell them they'll be safe, Max responds with saying it would take millions of years for the ship to reach its destination, and they'll die before they get there. And Jack isn't paying attention, grabs Ned's copy of the Bhagavad Gita before boarding a Vimana that has landed on the beach to pick him up. And so Ned makes to the sprocket gear. He rides it up like this is some platformer shit.
Right. It's the chase is on. It's a Minority Report.
Oh God, Minority
buddy.
Report. There's no flying monkeys here, at least.
Flying monkeys?
The dudes in the jetpacks.
Oh yeah.
Who cook burgers with their flame.
Oh, that's right.
I just rewatched that movie not long ago.
That movie's so fucking good, man.
Yeah, it is.
I could see Spielberg doing this. Like, I could see him doing
this.
Oh, yeah. Movie. Yeah. So they take off. Action sequences upon us. Imminent.
Yeah, and like Max and Piper are watching. The Vimana takes off. Max and Piper watch Ned riding the sprocket. This is the sprocket movie that Mike Myers was supposed to make.
Yeah.
But it stops 100 yards short of the top of the station, so he was holding on to this chain for a long time.
Extended sequence, yeah.
Just make the thing smaller. Make the hose longer. And so he manages to get one. Ned has to jump. It's slamming into the hose thanks to the quirks of inner Earth gravity. And he manages to get one Brunton flask in place and is trying to place the other when he gets swarmed by polyps that carry him off into the waiting Vimana where he passes out. Ned awakes to find his father kneeling over him, holding the book and saying how it predicted the end of the world that's about to happen.
That's right. Okay, so just to throw that out there, the ending there was really cool. Because, like, I mean, he does, like, a full... It's like like we called earlier, like, a platforming section. But I'm like, this was, like, straight out of, like, the Castlevania. Because, like, he was going over gears. He was doing a little bit of, like, jumping and swinging stuff. And when the polyps show up, it's not just that they just are there. It's, like, one of the... what are the vehicles called again?
Vimanas.
One of the Vimanas comes down, and the doors open up. And I think it's, like, one of the few times that it's described... kind of more, and it's like the doors open up like horizontally and they just kind of flood out on them and they grab them and they pull them back in, and it's like that whole sequence, like thinking about it while I'm reading it, and I'm like, yeah, that'd have been that. There's like a whole sequence in your trailer right there. It's like that is really really cool stuff. All right.
Yep, and so they are in a dark, enormous circular room with a domed ceiling, the inside of a stupa with an interterrestrial nearby. Ned sees his father is holding on to the remaining Brunton flask and asks him how he knew they were coming. Jack says he didn't know it was them specifically, and Ned, knowing the ITs communicate through touch, puts some pieces together and rips open Jack's shirt, finding the polyp. He figures out that the ITs knew about his plan because of the connection with his father, and Jack rambles on about how he had no chance, and even if they delayed long enough to tell the world, it still wouldn't make a difference. Ned then tries to grab Jack's polyp and is knocked down by the sudden sensations, falling to his knees and closing his eyes. So he gets another vision of the past, this time a formation of 10 Vimanas flying over the surface of the Earth 1 billion years before, as it was all still forming. A meteor shower hits the surface, and one of them strikes a Vimana, causing it to crash over the shallow sea, scattering the thousands of polyps that were inside. One of them sinks to the bottom. And so Ned comes to, the polyp flies out of his hands and merges with the nearby IT, which we basically find out they're made up.
Right, they're not solid mass. Yeah.
Yeah. And he now realizes that life on the surface was a mistake, and Jack says that we all sprang from its genetic material, using the singular. And he keeps talking, asking Ned if he wants to know more about it and why it wants to go home. And Ned picks up on the use of the singular pronoun. And then the IT leads Ned into the darker part of the room, where he finds a working scale model of the solar system the being came from.
Yep, that's the Prometheus map.
It's fucking Mission to Mars.
Yep.
And then the IT then leads them to the model of a purple-blue planet, its home. It's also the room from Pitch Black.
Yeah.
The IT places Ned's hand on the model planet and another vision, but this one we don't get to witness. Jack explains, saying it came from a beautiful planet that was like heaven, a nearly perfect place where death only comes every 100,000 years, and it divides to make more of himself, where no anger, pain, or sorrow exist. Then another species from a nearby solar system invaded, and rather than fight them, it chose to leave. Now the invader's sun has been destroyed, and it can safely return home. Talk about playing the long game.
Yeah.
Ned pulls his hand away, hones in on his father's references to it, and that's when the IT disintegrates into thousands of polyps and leaves the stupa through a door that irises open. Ned follows, emerging into the middle of Shambhala, the Vimana park nearby, and the polyps join a swarm that is gathering nearby, thousands upon thousands of creatures coalescing into a single 70-foot-tall humanoid being. Jack uses a term from Plato to refer to it, animus mundi, or the soul of the earth. Ned touches its finger and mentally communicates with it, showing it images of the people and life of the surfaces, pulled from earlier scenes in the movie, as well as part of a flashback to what happened with the baby bird when Ned was 7. That's a great moment.
Yeah, it is. It's all very abrupt, though.
Yeah, that is true.
It all happens so fast. It's how did we get from them? I mean, did the polyps just decide? Like, are they doing this just to show him this?
I guess. Okay.
Yeah, they didn't do anything to spur it to happen, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, this all started off so small. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And so Ned pulls his hand away, the being cocks its head to one side in wonder before disintegrating into polyps, fly away and disappear. Ned runs for the Vimana, and Jack tries to stop him, saying there's nothing he can do, and Ned fires back, bringing up the incident with the baby sparrow, saying he could have saved it, but let it die because he couldn't answer the question. And this seems to get through to Jack, who stops telling his son to trust him, but trust himself and leave him behind. But Ned then slugs him and knocks him out.
Nice.
And so back on the beach, Chen Li is still in shock and weeping, and Max and Piper watch as a swarm of polyps rises over Shambhala, so dense it blocks out the light of the central sun. They then hear Ned calling to them and see that he has landed the Vimana nearby. Of course, he knows how to fly because he read that book.
Yeah.
Which I guess kind of makes sense. Like, learning to be a ninja from reading a book.
I'll say they're doing something kind of interesting that they're kind of, he's kind of, as these sequences are kind of going on, because we're getting pretty close to the end now, I think, right? Like, we got to be within the last 15, 20 pages of the script. The polyps aren't necessarily, like, they kind of go back and forth between, like, hunting them and not hunting them. You get the impression that the polyps could just overwhelm them whenever they want to, but they're not like an active force so much, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like they're chewing at everything and we got to get away, and it's like they're eating everything around us. It's more like they're there and they're watching us and they're moving around. So it's, kind of, I mean, I'm bringing this up because of some of the stuff, like some of the last pages kind of reveals that are going to happen. You might be wondering, like, some of this stuff. So
yep, and so they all get on board. Ned awkwardly controls the thing. The door is left open because Piper doesn't know how to close it, and so he manages to level the craft. Explains to Piper that he conversed with the being and tried to give it something to think about, since Jack was convinced that it did actually care.
Yeah.
And the plan is to fly the Vimana out one of the vent holes, but Max observes how far the shafts have moved and realizes they don't have time to reach it before it closes up. And they also see the swarm of polyps fly back towards Shambhala and disappear, and Ned pilots the Vimana back towards the power station, planning to blow a hole in the fuse like before. He tries to teach Piper how to fly the Vimana before he gets out, but Jack comes back to consciousness and, still holding the second Brutton flask, determines to do it for them. That's when Max sees the entire city of Shambhala rise into the air, revealing the buildings to be a massive fleet of Vimanas.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so Jack talks to Ned about the baby sparrow, saying he put it back in the nest himself, and that he only wanted Ned to think about the question. He then jumps from the craft, sliding down the hose to the top of the power station. As the Vimana gets hopelessly surrounded by the Shambhala fleet, Jack tries to unclip the flask, but the power station is now vibrating so intensely that he can barely see, so he just shoves it in next to the other flask while it's still attached to him. As Jack searches for something to light the gunpowder with, Ned pushes the throttle all the way forward, making the Vimana shoot straight up towards the central sun. So, cool chase sequence.
Very cool chase sequence.
Jack finds a matchbook in one of his pockets with 2 matches left, and the first gets put out immediately by the vibrations. Ned then steers the Vimana towards one of the shafts, which is close to connecting a shaft near the Antarctic portal. They're forced to evade a wall of Shambhala Vimanas, forcing Ned to suddenly pitch their craft down and skid across the ice. They don't have enough time to make it through, though, and that's when Jack matches the light, gets the match to light, sparking off the gunpowder and breaking the hose, but at the cost of his life. And so Ned steers the Vimana towards a shaft that stopped moving, and the 100,000 Shambhala Vimanas all stop and land right there. Billions of polyps emerge and swarm, coalescing together into the single being again, a 170-mile-tall humanoid.
Right.
Or the space traveler, the one who created the spaceship.
Neat.
As Ned and... Yeah, so cool. As they fly towards the shaft, they have 100 feet of clearance. They see the space traveler as it retrieves Jack's burned and broken body from the power station and holds him up to its face. Chen Li, who had been holding on to a single polyp, says that it must be mourning for Jack's death.
Yeah, so that, like, why I mentioned, like, they're not like an actively aggressive force. Like, even now, like, it's like they watched it happen, right? Were they actively attacking the ship as that was going on?
They were chasing
They were chasing it, but it's like they were more kind of, well, I don't know. Yeah. And it turned into a giant, like, 140-mile tall humanoid shape. Is that what it was?
170 miles.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah. And I assume... So I was trying to think about, like, what that would look like, because we see it a couple of times. I assume it was like he was going for, like, Buddha. Like, there's, like, fat Buddha and thin Buddha. And it's like, I assume he was going for, like, the thin Buddha kind of nondescript Asian-faced statue look with that. Like, I have to wonder if that's where, like, his mind was in terms of... Because, I mean, it's kind of written in such a vague way that it can be anything, even though you know it's not, like, a monster. right? Like it's humanoid shaped and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know. We're almost at the end, and I got a couple of more theories once this is over, and we can kind of go a little bit more into that. But there we go.
Yeah. This surprising display of grief is the last thing they see before Ned steers the Vimana past the node and into the vent hole, just barely scraping through. They find themselves in a chasm like the one they fell through, with Max pointing out that it's not the same one. Piper tries to comfort Ned, but he has found solace in the fact that Jack sacrificed himself not just for him, but for everybody. The rocky chasm soon gives way to man-made stone slabs, and there is no way out. Ned pushes the throttle and bursts through the barrier, exploding out of the Great Pyramid at Giza and scaring the crap out of some tourists. And this is the second time within a month I've seen the Great Pyramid get destroyed.
Yep.
Only this time it's not Godzilla spearing Kong through the pyramid and then suplexing him into the rubble.
We got pyramids, people.
And the Vimana was damaged in the process, though, and it crashes into the Nile, forcing them to swim for shore. And Max is like, that's our proof. And I'm like, yeah, just call Numa, they'll get it. After they all make it out of the water, Chen Li asks what they're going to do now. Ned says they should do nothing. And Max is aghast about the fact that he won't do anything about the incoming end of the world. Ned thinks that won't happen now, though, reflecting on how the space traveler reacted to Jack's sacrifice. He can't explain why he believes this, just saying that he has faith, and it ends. And there's a moment where he's like putting his hand to his chest, and it makes you wonder if he has a polyp now.
I didn't catch that. Okay.
But it's very subtle, but...
Yeah, very subtle. Gotcha.
Well, I think it's giving you the implication of maybe that's what happened, but then he says he has faith, and that's meant to say that he doesn't.
Right. He just knows it. Yeah.
But that, solid ending.
There you go. Yeah. Very solid ending. Very, very not where I was expecting it to go. I
like the ambiguous ending.
Yeah, well, if it could be ambiguous, but overall, the religious nature of the script and the sort of hopeful nature that the script had, leads me like no I could, oh my god, dude, I can see this being like a real head turner. I would be real curious to know how far up the chain this script went. Like, how far did it go? And to know, like, to think, like, we were joking about Minority Report earlier, but like he wrote Mission Impossible, and to know that like he had Jendresen here had like background with Macquarie, I'm like, this had to have been pitched up there. Like, this is a smart. They knew what they had. I'm just some asshole, and I can tell what they had. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
like the
so
people
good.
that are paid to read this shit have to definitely know what they had here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of goes back to like what he was talking about like during a Star Trek interview. Like, yeah, this is like ye olden science fiction leading into like religion. You know, like this is like ancient. He's picking up on like ancient science fiction.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I don't know, like thinking back on us having talked about it, I'm not sure how much we really like hammered home how much like Hindu and Eastern religious philosophy was in this script. I know we mentioned it a couple of times.
There's a lot.
It is endless. And
I mean, we couldn't possibly have.
Right.
Yeah.
To the point where I'm like, I wish there was a couple of more things. Like, I wish that the ice layer had like flecks of gold in it, so that way you could have like had like the representative of the golden seal, you know, or the golden circle, not the golden seal, the golden circle, and it's such a fun take that it's like on retrospect, it's like I think we could have cranked it up a little more with the Hinduism, to be honest with you, and that's why like I wonder about the alien itself, and why I was like, that's probably why it's not aggressive, was because like he knew, unlike the last script, well, I can't say with a certainty about the last script, but unlike the last script where it felt like they didn't know what kind of monster, what it was going to be. It was going to be a thing for sure, but they didn't know what it was until the very end. And this one was like, no, he knew what this was going to be the whole way, and I can tell he kind of wrestled with that a little bit, because it's like, why didn't there are things here that I think you might want to say, like, oh, I would do it differently. Like, I would make the I would make the monsters a little more antagonistic, and I'd want them to have a little bit more like aggressive qualities. Like, what would happen if like the father of Jack, the father character, wasn't really Jack anymore? What if he like turned up the Carpenter aspects and like, he had been thingified, where it's like he didn't know he was thingified, like one of the many and all of that, and it's because, well, the reason why, and as cool as that would be, the reason why they didn't do that is because of the Hindu sort of themes that are going on, and with the like, because I'm trying to remember now, there's like 10 or 12 like golden rules in Hinduism, and at least 2 of them have to do with like respecting your elders and like the kind of deeper implications there. And I'm like, okay, I see. I guarantee you, if I could remember what those rule set were, what that rule set was, like the name of it, you could probably track every single one of them in this script. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's clever. It's really clever. It's dense with this stuff. And there's credentials here, I guess, because like I said at the very beginning, when we first started talking about this script, was this guy had, before Band of Brothers, he had written a couple of books. He's a published author. And I looked into those books, and it's like they are deep Hinduistic spiritual books. It looks like 2 of them are like more textual academia books about like some either philosophies or histories of Hindu, and then one of them looks like a young person's like a young teenager's or two mid teenagers like first experience with Hinduism and those kinds of thoughts and philosophies, Eastern Europe, or not Eastern Europe, but Eastern religions. Eastern Europe. Nope. You get yourself a tracksuit and you pose down. But
Eurovision.
Anyway, I can't stop gushing about this thing. This is a fucking movie, man. Like this is a script. After 4 years of waiting that I've been sitting on this bad boy, that was worth every penny for price of admission. This was great. This should have been a movie.
I'm on the Vimana Wikipedia page. The Vaimanika Shastra is an early 20th century Sanskrit text obtained allegedly by mental channeling. Oops.
And which one was that?
That's the supposed instruction manual to the Vimanas.
Oh, okay. He's pulling stuff up. Yep. But I did pull up the Vimana.
But it's not ancient at all.
Okay.
The book, the manuscript.
Right. But I did bring up the Vimanas, and it's essentially the ones that, like, if you bring it up on Google, the first ones you'll see are essentially the castle in the sky from Studio Ghibli.
Yeah.
But if you scroll down a little bit further down in there, it looks like somebody did some concept art for, I'm not seeing it now, although I am seeing some spaceship versions of it that we're getting off topic here. But yeah.
There's a Bangladesh airline named after them.
These kind of look like, I might post a picture or send you the picture. You can put it in the show notes. But there's a little picture. It looks like it was photoed from a camera out of a textbook of these like Hindu guys flying around in this contraptions from Star Trek. Yeah, but yeah, wild ride, man. That was a good one.
Yeah, I told you it was insane. And you could now see why I barely mentioned the other one.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad I read them in the order that I did. So we got it was good. The first one was fine. They get kudos.
Yeah.
But like, we saved the main event for last.
The absolute madness of the 20-mile high power station.
Yeah. And you think about that, and it's like, okay. So as we were talking about earlier, it's like it's slopes and plains and like a large cityscape in the distance. And the oppressive fog and kind of the struts of the inside of the ship here and there, maybe if you want to break it up a little bit, but then it's just field, and it's like, okay, but then like during the end chase.
Okay, we get it.
But then during the end chase, it's like they're getting chased by the ships and stuff. So it is the fight scene from the end of Naboo, right? So it is just endless field. So you don't have to render that much, really.
It's both Naboo fights put together.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the Windows desktop.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Kinda. Oh, all right.
But yeah, that was Journey to the Center of the Earth. Very interesting, set of things to talk about.
That was a blast. Yeah.
And I think that wraps it up. So yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed that episode, and until next time, bye.
See ya.